Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei adopted Burcol as brother in Highschool DXD Part 2. Before we start, please go support J Subridgeworth 8 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Chapter 5, The Super Saiyan. Kaneko was walking back to the Orc building to tell the president and Akeno of what happened today when he was walking home. After she walked into the building, she told everyone that she was back from her task. Kaneko, I'm back everyone. She says to everyone. Ria's welcome back Kaneko, I'd say you came back with good news about this Burcol person. She says to her rook. Kaneko shakes her head at her president. This leaves everyone shocked in the room. Kaneko, that's the thing president, when I was following him he turned into an alleyway. As I caught up to him into the alleyway, he disappeared. She says to everyone in the room, and everyone in the room was in more shock than before. Akeno, oh my, he keeps surprising us even more every time that we meet him. She says as she lets out a devilish smirk. Kiba, it's astonishing that he can disappear like that. Kiba says while sitting on the couch. Riaz was at her desk thinking what to do next. Riaz, well, it seems that following him won't work because I think he knew that you was following him Kaneko. Kaneko was kinda surprised by what Riaz said. Well, I think that's enough for day, all of you are dismissed. Everyone nodded and left the building, while Riaz was only one left in the building. What are you Burcol Hyoudou? Hyoudou residence. Burcol was changing out of his school uniform into boxer shorts and a shirt. After he was done doing that, he heard Issei coming through the front door like a madman was trying to kill him. Issei, Burcol, where are you? He hears him screaming through the house, calling his name. Burcol comes rushing downstairs to see Issei. Burcol, Issei, what's up, is everything alright? He said as he had some concern in his voice. Issei, guess what happened after you left? Burcol continued to listen. A girl asked me to be their girlfriend and now I will be going out on a date with her this Saturday. Burcol was surprised by this. A girl asking out a pervert, that's something that you don't see every day. On the bridge flashback, Burcol had just left the area and Issei went back to leaning on the railing, thinking about what he was talking about what his brother was saying earlier. Issei, I try to stay positive, but all I keep thinking about is mom and dad getting killed by those things. He says in his thoughts, having his head down on the railing while he continued to think until someone called his name out. Excuse me, are you Issei Hyoudou from Kuo Academy? Issei perked his head to stare at a beautiful young girl with dark hair and a school uniform that he had never seen before. Issei, yeah, do I know you from somewhere? The girl notices that Issei was staring right at her. She then goes shy and faces the ground, but only for her to calm down again. Sorry if was distracting you from something, but there's something that I want to tell you. Issei stands up straight to face the girl. Are you seeing anybody right now? She says while she was stuttering with her words. Issei found this cute as she couldn't get the right words, but decided to answer back. Issei, no, I'm not actually, why do you ask? He says as he was confused and he was thinking why a girl her is talking him, then he finally got the idea. No way, is this girl actually, he says in his thoughts. Well, I've been wanting to tell you for a while, but I haven't really had the courage to tell you. She says as her face was starting to go red. I. She couldn't say it cause she was stuck on that one word until. I like you to be my boyfriend. She says as she faces her head down. There was an awkward silence for at least a minute until Issei tired to break the silence. Issei, I. He tired too but was in shock that a girl asked him out, but in his thoughts. Whoa, is this for real? He said in his thoughts. He tired to that breathing technique that his brother taught him to calm down and at work. He smiled at the girl. Of course, I'd love to be your girlfriend. The girl was happy, she ran towards him and jumped into his arms. This is the best day ever. He said in his thoughts as he was hugging his new girlfriend. Since we are official now, we should go on a date. Issei found this a great idea and he nodded his head. Great, then how does Saturday sound at around 12 p.m? Issei, yeah, that's fine with me. After he said that, they both exchanged phone numbers and both said their goodbyes. As she was walking away, Issei called out to her. Hey, before you go. This gets her to turn around. I never got your name. Oh how silly of me, my name is Yuma Mano. She says as she let out a warm smile. I'll see you Saturday Issei, bye. She says that as she was running home. Issei was standing there waving at his girlfriend. Issei, yeah, Saya. As Issei was done waving, he started getting excited as he was jumping up and down like a crazy man. Oh, this is going to be bucking awesome, I'm going to be touching tits, he said that as he was running home to tell Burcol the good news. End of flashback. Issei, and that's how she asked me out and I'm going on a date with her this Saturday. Burcol paid attention to what Issei had to say about how he got a girlfriend and such. Burcol was kinda surprised about his little brother getting a girlfriend and even when Issei is perverted and such. Burcol, well, good for you Issei, and good luck with that date you have on Saturday. He said as he stood up from the couch. Well, I'm going to bed now Issei, have a good night. After he said that, both of them went up to their room to get ready for bed. Issei, oh, this day was probably the best day ever. I got to see girls naked and now I have a girlfriend and I'm going out with her this week. He said as he gave a creepy face. And after the date, it's going to be hexy time, he said as he screaming though his room, he covered his mouth to make sure he didn't wake up his brother. He put his ear up against his bedroom door to make sure Burcol wasn't coming to his room. Luckily he didn't. Issei sat down on his bed. I gotta be more quiet if I don't want to wake up Burcol. Well, I'm going to bed. He jumped into his bed and turned the light off next to him and automatically fell asleep. Time skip. The next day, Burcol had just woken up and was putting on his Saiyan armor to go and train like he normally does every day when he wakes up. After he was done doing that, he went outside and flew off to the same place he was training yesterday. Time skip. 2 hours later, after Burcol was done doing training, he went back home to get ready for another day of school. When he got back, he went to wake up Issei before he had any breakfast. Issei would come down in a minute while Burcol would go downstairs to make him and his brother breakfast. When Burcol was done making breakfast, he sat down and he gobbled up all of his food like he usually does. Issei came down and picked up his breakfast off the bench and started eating while talking to Burcol. After Issei was done eating, he put his plate in the sink and started walking to school with his brother. Burcol, so Issei, any ideas that you might do on your date this Saturday? This gets Issei's attention as he was thinking what to do. Issei, I might go and take her to get some clothes for her, then maybe go and get something to eat, and that's pretty much it. Burcol smiled as Issei did the same. Burcol, you know Issei, I'm proud that you found someone. Issei was glad to hear that from someone, especially from his own brother Burcol. Hyoudou Academy, Issei and Burcol finally made it to school and they were about to head to their classes until Issei called out to Burcol. Issei, Burcol. He gets his attention. My girlfriend is coming here after school and I was wondering if you want to meet her. Burcol smiled, meaning he'll say yes. Burcol, I'd love to meet your girlfriend Issei. He says while giving the thumbs up to his brother. I'll see you after school. They both say their goodbyes and head to their classes. Burcol was walking to his first class while trying to think about stuff. I'm still surprised that Issei even has a girlfriend and because of how perverted he is, all the girls hat. Burcol didn't get to finish what he was saying in his thoughts cause he bumped right into someone. I'm so sorry, are you okay? Burcol was shocked who he bumped into, it was none other than Ria's Gremory. Ria's, yes, I'm fine. She says while still on the ground. Burcol went to help her up and she accepted his hand. Thank you. Burcol, no problem. He says while giving her a smile. I gotta be careful whenever I'm around her. He says in his thoughts. He realizes that he was still holding on to her hand, he quickly lets go of her hand as his cheeks started to go red. Ria's found this cute as she went to speak up. Ria's, that was some performance you put on yesterday, jumping high off the ground and taking that ball to the head. She said as she was smiling at Burcol. Burcol, gonna have to make up an excuse here, don't want to blow my cover. As he said that in his thoughts, he was trying to come up with something until he finally got it. Well, I always do stretches and jumping every morning, hahaha. He said as he nervously laughed. Ria's knew he was lying but decided to go along with it. Phew, she believes it. Ria's, then what happened when you got hit in the head with that ball? How did you not get hurt from that? Burcol started sweating as he tried to make something up. Burcol, will you look at that amigatagabi, he said fast as he started sprinting to his class. Ria's found this funny as she started walking to her class slowly. Time skip. End of the day. It was now the end of the day and Burcol went to go find Issei to meet his new girlfriend. He went to search for his energy and he found it instantly, but he also found another energy, but this person's energy was just evil and mansing. Burcol would try and figure out that power later cause he wanted to meet his brother's new girlfriend. After a little walk he found Issei and a girl standing next to him, meaning that's his girlfriend. Burcol, you Issei, he said as he started walking towards the two. Issei turns around to see who called his name out and he saw Burcol walking towards them. The two brothers smiled at each other and gave each other a fist bump. So, this must be your girlfriend. He said as he smiled at Issei. He nodded at his brother. Burcol went to speak up but the girl spoke up. Yuma, hi, my name is Yuma Mono and it's so nice to meet you. Issei has not stopped taking about you. She said with the biggest and most gentle smile ever. Burcol found this adorable and smiled at her. Burcol, well, hello there Yuma, my name is Burcol Hyoudou and Issei has not stopped talking about you too, I should say. Burcol turns around to face Issei, but he was embarrassed by him, saying he hasn't stopped talking about Yuma. Burcol turned back around to face Yuma again, but this time he went to handshake her. She notices this and then starts to shake Burcol's hand. As he was shaking her hand, he felt that power from before. No, this energy. It can't, nah, I'm thinking too much about it, it can't be her, besides look how innocent she looks. He said in his thoughts as she continued to smile at Burcol and Issei. Well, I love staying in chat, but I gotta get home, it was nice to meet you Yuma. He said with a smile. Uma, it was nice meeting you to Burcol. She said to Burcol. She then turns to Issei. Issei, I gotta go as well, I'll see you this Saturday for our date. She then approaches Issei and kisses him on the cheek. Issei was shocked as he wanted to get excited, but he decided to be cool. She then leaves the area, leaving Burcol and Issei all alone. Burcol, we should probably get home before it gets too dark. Issei agrees with his brother and the two of them started walking home together. While they were walking home, Burcol was thinking about that girl's energy. That's so strange, the energy that I sensed before was coming from that girl, but why though? He was still thinking about it until he gave up about that girl. I'm thinking too much about it, besides I should be happy for Issei since he has a new girlfriend. Issei notices this and asks Burcol if he is alright. Issei, hey, you good bro? Burcol, yeah, I'm good, don't worry about me, I'm fine. He says to his brother with a smile. Issei did the same back. The two of them finally got home after a big day of school. Burcol got out of his uniform and changed into normal clothing. He was thinking what to get for dinner. You know what, I think we'll just order takeaway cause I can't be stuffed cooking tonight. This says in his thoughts. He then goes to Issei's room to ask him what he wants for takeaway. He stops at the front of his door, then knocks. Hey Issei. Issei then jumps in his room, causing something to break. Burcol hears it and decides to ask what broke. What just broke Issei, are you alright? Issei, yeah, I'm fine and it was nothing, don't worry about it. He says from the other side of the door. Burcol, okay then, anyway I was gonna ask you what you want for takeaway because I'm too lazy to cook tonight. Issei then comes towards the door then opens it, standing in front of his brother. He was thinking what he wanted until he finally figured out what he wanted. Issei, I got it, how about pizza? Burcol nods and he went back to his room to go order pizza. After he made the order, he decided to just go chill in his room until the pizza got here. Time skip. 10 minutes later. After waiting for 10 minutes, the pizza finally arrived to the house. Burcol got up from his bed and went down to the kitchen to get some money so he can pay for his food. He went to the front door and opened it. As he opened the door he saw a guy standing there with the pizzas. Burcol paid for the pizza and said goodbye to the man. He went back to the kitchen to set down the food. Burcol, Issei, the food is here, he said, yelling from downstairs in the kitchen. He then hears footsteps coming from upstairs, meaning it was Issei coming down. As he got to the kitchen, he saw a tower of pizza boxes stacked on top of each other. Issei's jaw just dropped just by the amount of how much Burcol brought. Issei, sometimes I just forget how much you eat. He said as he let out a laugh. Burcol did the same. Issei got out a plate and got a few slices, while Burcol just took the whole pizza box and sat down at the table eating. Hey Burcol. He gets his attention. Tomorrow we're off school, which means we don't have to go, it's a day off. Burcol just nods with the pizza slice in his mouth. He kept putting pizza slice after pizza slice in his mouth and he didn't stop. Issei just laughs at this. You know, if you keep doing that then you will choke on your food. He says to Burcol. Burcol, nah, I'll be fine. He says as he finished the last of his pizza. Burcol then remembered something. He asked his brother. Hey Issei, what day is it tomorrow? That gets Issei's attention. Issei, it's Saturday tomorrow, why? He said to his brother. Burcol, oh yeah, you have your date tomorrow, do you? Issei nods as he was still eating his food. Well, you have your date tomorrow, I'm gonna go out and go train with Master Rashi. He says to Issei. Burcol stands up and decided to go upstairs. Well Issei, I'ma hit the hay, I'll see you tomorrow, good night. He says good night to his brother. Issei did the same and Burcol went to upstairs to his room. As he got to his room, he got into his bed and turned the light off and went to sleep. Time skip. The next day. It was the next morning and Burcol got up and changed into his Saiyan armor cause he was going to train with Master Rashi today. As he got done changing, he left his room and went to Issei's room. As he got to Issei's door, he knocked on it, waking up Issei. Burcol, Issei, wake up, you got a date today, remember? He said from outside of Issei's door. You hear Issei jetting up quickly and getting changed. Issei, yeah, I'll be right out. He said to his brother. Burcol went downstairs and decided to make breakfast. After he was done making breakfast, he sat the toast that he toasted on top of the plate, making a big tower. Burcol sat down and was getting ready to eat up his breakfast. He started from the top, then made it all the way down to the piece of toast. As he was done eating, Issei came out of his room fully dressed and came downstairs to make breakfast. As he got done making himself breakfast, he turned to Burcol and asked him something. When are you heading out? Burcol perks his head up to face Issei. Burcol, I'm leaving in a second and I will not be back till the end of the day. He says to his brother with a smile. Issei did the same. Burcol looked at the clock on the wall to see what time it is. What time does your date start, Issei? Issei, it starts at 12 o'clock, why? Burcol, because the time now is 11:55. After Burcol said that, Issei's eyes went wide-eyed and stood up and went towards the door. Issei, shit, I'm going to be late, I'll see you after when my date is done, Burcol. Burcol waved at Burcol saying goodbye. Burcol did the same and Issei went out the door to start his date with Yuma. Burcol, right, I should be going now, don't want to keep Rashi waiting. He then puts his fingers on top of his forehead and tries to sense his master's energy. He finally found it and he instant transmission to him. Hame house. Master Rashi, oh, I'm gonna have fun with this magazine. He says as he was giving off a creepy face what Issei does all the time. As he continued to give that creepy face, Burcol appeared out of nowhere scaring Rashi of his bed. Burcol, what a pleasant surprise. What are you doing here, my boy? He said, trying to find the right words. Burcol, hey Rashi, I was hoping if I can train today cause there is nothing else to do. He had his hands placed together, begging the old man to train today. Master Rashi, well, I've taught you everything that I know, but I guess you can train today. He said, getting off the ground and walked towards Burcol, patting him on the shoulder. Burcol, yes, woohoo. Thanks Master Rashi. He said, giving the biggest smile towards his master that he has been training with ever since he was young boy. Rashi returned the smile back. I'll meet you outside, Rashi. He said as he opened the door and walked straight outside. Master Rashi, I was really hoping that I could read that magazine, but I guess I could read it later, once Burcol is done with his training. He said in his thoughts and exited the house to train Burcol for the day. In the city, Issei was waiting for Yuma to arrive for their date. He brought out his phone and started messaging Yuma, saying where she was. After a minute waiting, she responded back saying that she will there soon. After waiting for like 5 minutes, Yuma finally arrived. Yuma, hey, sorry I'm late. She said as she was walking up to Issei. Issei, no, it's fine, I'm just glad that you came. He said to Yuma, but in his thoughts. I've always wanted to say that to a girl. After he said in his thoughts, the two of them started their date. Time skip. I think you all have seen this bit so I'm gonna skip ahead. After Issei and Yuma had finished their date, the two of them were walking to a park. The two of them were walking side by side. Issei feels Yuma's hand touch his hand and he tries not to freak out. Issei, I'm actually touching a girl, I think I'm gonna hold her hand. After he said that in his thoughts, he grabbed her hand and was now holding hand to hand with her. Yuma was shocked by and she frowned by this. I'm actually doing it, I'm holding hands with a girl. As they got close to the water fountain, Yuma lets go of Issei's hands and runs in front of him. Yuma, I've had fun today Issei, but can I ask you something? She says facing her head down. Issei notices this and he was getting an idea in his head. Issei, no way am I going to kiss Yuma, pretty please let me kiss you. He said in his thoughts. Yuma faces Issei with an evil smirk and said to Issei. Yuma, would you die for me? Hame house. Burcol was finally done with his training and was ready to head home. He went to go find Master Rashi to tell him that he was leaving. Burcol, hey Master Rashi, I'm done for the day so I'm gonna go home now. He said to Master Rashi with a smile. Rashi did the same. Master Rashi, alright my boy, you do take care now. Rashi and Burcol said their goodbyes and Burcol took off in the sky and flew home. After Burcol was far away from Kame house, the old man started to pull off a dirty face. Now to get back to the magazine I was gonna read. Hyoudou residence. Burcol finally made it back home after big day of training with Master Rashi. He walked through the door and went straight to his room to change out of his Saiyan armor and pop on some normal clothing. He walked out of his room and went to Issei's room. He stopped at his door and knocked. Burcol, hey Issei, I'm back, do you want anything for dinner? After he said that, there was no response. He was thinking he was probably still out on his date. Burcol went downstairs and decided to make Issei and himself dinner. Might as well make him something once he comes back from his date. After he said that, Burcol put some steak and vegetables on. After he was done making his dinner, he sat down at the table. He ate all of his food up and went back upstairs to brush his teeth. Issei should be back by now. He said in his thoughts as he was brushing his teeth. After he was done brushing his teeth, he went downstairs to see if Issei is back yet. He got downstairs and he hasn't came home yet. Burcol was confused to why he has not returned home yet. He tried to sense his brother's energy and to his surprise he couldn't find. Burcol was getting worried about Issei. He ran out of the house and it was raining, but Burcol didn't care about that. Burcol took off to the sky and went to find Issei. As Burcol was flying, someone was spying on him and that person was shocked that he could fly without wings and that person was Kaneko. Flashback 30 minutes earlier, Riaz and her peerage were hanging out the orc building until Riaz spoke to Kaneko. Riaz, Kaneko, can I have word with you for a second? She nodded and went out of the room with Riaz to speak with her. I've got an assignment for you, I want you to keep an eye out on Burcol today. She nodded again and walked out of the orc building and started to look for Burcol. End of flashback. Kaneko, I'm not going to lose him, not again. After she said that in her thoughts, she ran after Burcol to see what he was up to. Time skip. 10 minutes later, Burcol was still flying around looking for Issei. After flying around for a good while, he found someone laying down in the puddle of water mixed with something else. He tried to figure who was that person while he was in the sky. He then dropped down from the sky and started walking up to the body until he turned the body onto its backside and it came to Burcol's shock. It was Issei who had a massive hole on his stomach. Burcol fell to his knee and slowly started to cry. "Burcol, I say, it can't be real," he said as he had tears in his eyes. He grabbed a hold of Issei's head and started hugging him. "Issei, Issei, Issei," he kept saying his name, but there was no response. Burcol stood straight back up and started screaming and clenched his hand so hard that his nails pierced through his skin, causing blood to come out. He kept screaming until he started to feel a power go up in him and, out of nowhere, his hair was a different color. His hair was now blonde, his eyes were now a teal color, and he had golden aura around him. The earth was shaking cause of the amount of power Burcol was releasing. He dropped to his knees while he was still screaming till he slammed his fists into the ground, causing the shaking to stop. Kaneko W, what is this power? It's higher than a devil, an angel and a fallen angel. Kaneko was shocked by Burcol's power. "I have to report this back to the president." She got up out of a bush and started running back to the Orc building. Orc building, Riaz, Akeno and Kiba were shocked by the energy that they felt and the earthquake that just happened. "Kiba, what was that energy that we just felt and that earthquake, what was that?" he said as he was trying to think what that energy was. As he was thinking, Kaneko came bursting through the door. Riaz stood up from her chair and walked up to Kaneko. "Riaz, are you alright, Kaneko? Did you also feel that as well?" Kaneko nodded and she started to explain to Riaz what happened. Kaneko, well, he went looking for his brother Issei and he found him at a nearby park, but someone killed him. Riaz and everyone were shocked. When Burcol found him dead, he released some kind of power inside of him, his hair changed color and he had yellow aura surrounding him. Riaz, then that's when the ground started shaking. Kaneko nodded her head. "I see," she said as she had her fingers under her chin. "Well, we will talk more about this tomorrow, you are all dismissed." Everyone said their goodbyes and walked out the door. Riaz went back to her sit to try and think. Time skip. The next day. It was the next day and Burcol had woken up while his eyes were still red from crying. He got up like any other person would, get ready for school. He skipped breakfast and just went straight to school. Guo Academy. Burcol had arrived at school, but he had his face down and had a sad look on his face. Everyone took notice of this, every girl was concerned about him, while the boys were happy about it. Burcol didn't pay any attention to anyone who was looking at him. Throughout the day, Burcol would not pay attention to any of his classes. The teacher would ask him a question, but did not pay attention to her. This continued till the end of the day. Burcol would walk around for a little, but to clear out his head a little bit. Burcol would go to the park where his brother was killed, he looked at the water in the water fountain and would think of the good memories that he and Issei had over the years. Burcol, I failed to protect my parents from the androids many years ago and now I failed to save Issei. He said as he was staring at the water in the water fountain. "I swear Issei, I will find whoever did this to you." As he said that, the sky went all dark and it spooked Burcol a little bit. What the hell? "So, you're the one who was releasing that power yesterday." Burcol turned around to see who was talking. He saw a guy wearing a black coat with a black hat. "Burcol, yeah, what's it to you?" The guy didn't respond back, he kept walking towards Burcol. Burcol was starting to get irritated and asked him again. "If you don't answer me, stranger, I'm gonna beat the living hell out of you cause I'm not in the best mood," he said to the stranger, then all of a sudden he summoned a spear and threw it at Burcol. He notices this and moves out of the way, the spear hit the fountain and it made an explosion. Burcol was angry and charged at the person and went kick him in the gut, but the person grew wings out of his back and blocked the kick with his wings. Burcol notices this and backs up and stares the stranger down. "Who are you and what do you want from me?" he said to the stranger. "It doesn't matter boy cause you're going to die by my summoned spear he said as he threw another spear at Burcol. This time he jumped into the sky, but this time the spear was following him. "Burcol, you gotta be kidding me," he said as he speed off into the sky as the spear was chasing him. He was flying around the park trying to get rid of the spear that was following him. He flew straight to the ground and tried to time when to fly back up. Now as he said that, he threw back up into the air and the spear came crashing down to the ground. Burcol was hovering above the park trying to find where that person went. Where did that he didn't get to finish his sentence cause he was kicked straight in the face and was sent flying towards the trees in the nearby park. Nearly all of the trees were knocked down and Burcol was laying in a large crater that he made when he got kicked in the face. The stranger came down to the crater and saw Burcol in the crater, he started walking towards him. "You're good kid, no one has ever escaped my light spears, but summon spear you won't be escaping this one." He picked up by the neck and slammed him into a tree and stabbed Burcol right in the stomach, he gives him an evil smirk. "Since you're gonna die anyway, might as well lend you in a little secret." Burcol what are you talking about? He says while he is still pinned to the tree, he kept trying to pull it out, but it wouldn't bugle. Aha, you know what I'm talking about, did you have brother named Issei Hyoudou? He says that has pushed the spear into him more. Burcol is screaming, trying to pull the spear out cause of how deep it is going, but he was too weak. Burcol damn you, what did you do to him? Well, we told our beloved Rainer to disguise as a cute girl to go out with your brother and well, you can guess what happened next. He says while laughing at Burcol. Flashback at the park. Rainer, would you die for me? Issei thought that she something about dying, he asked her again to see what she said. Issei, ah sorry I didn't get that, mind repeating that to me again. As soon as he said that, Rainer started walking up to him and whispered in his ear. Rainer, I said I want you to die for me. Then all of a sudden, she transforms into fabric outfit with black angel wings in on the back. Issei was distracted cause when she was transforming, he got a peek at her breast. Once she was done transforming, Issei looked terrified cause he was staring at a monster. Well, it's a shame that our little date has to end there, but I have to do my job and kill you. As she says that, she summons a spear and points it at Issei. Issei fell to the ground begging Rainer to let him live. Issei, Yuma, please, he kept begging, but she wasn't listening. Rainer, it's time for you to die. She says as she stabs him in the stomach. Issei fell to his knees as he was spitting out blood. He fell backwards onto his back, then Rainer said something. Oh, and thanks for the date, it was fun. She says smiling while flying off. End of flashback. After the stranger told Burcol what happened to his brother, he was in shock and he closed his eyes. Burcol, why you bastard, and you pay for that. His blood was boiling while he was giving the person the death stare. You pay for thought. As he said that, his aura started to surround him. He ripped a spear out of his stomach and pushed the person back who had a shocked look on his face. Burcol had his face down while holding onto his stomach. What the buck is this aura and energy? He said in his thoughts as he was now staring at Burcol. Burcol looked up at the person with rage. Burcol, you're gonna regret telling me that because now I'm mad, I'm really mad. He let go of his stomach and put his hands beside him. And now it's time to pay. And out of nowhere, he transformed into that golden form again. The person was shocked by the amount of energy he was releasing. He didn't get to finish what he was gonna say cause he was punched straight on the side of the face and was sent flying through trees. Burcol teleported behind him and kicked him up in the air. He teleported once more up in the sky and knocked him back down into the ground. There was now a huge crater, but Burcol wasn't done yet. Burcol, you're going to regret telling me all of that, he says while shooting Kai Blast at the person. He was getting reeked by blast cause Burcol didn't stop, he kept going. As he stopped, he went down to the crater and picked him up and threw him up in the air, and Burcol started chasing after him, but out of nowhere, the person threw another spear at Burcol, but this time knocked it out of the way. He went in full speed punching and kicking him in the face and gut. After that, he sent big massive punch to his face and sent him down full speed into the ground. Now there was bigger crater than before. Burcol teleported to the ground and stared at the man who had blood all over his face. Burcol, who was still in that golden form, had disappeared. His golden hair went back to his normal black hair, and so did his eyes. Burcol thought that he defeated him, but out of nowhere, the person who was in the crater opened his eyes and quickly summoned a spear and stabbed Burcol in the stomach again. He staggered back and the person came out of the crater and ran towards Burcol. You're starting to be a pain in my ass, kid, time to die. As he said that, he threw the spear at him. Burcol tried standing up with the spear in his stomach, but he fell to his knees, but all of a sudden, red magic came out of nowhere deflecting the spear. Burcol and the person were confused of what just happened. Okay, what did you do, you little shit? Then all of a sudden, Burcol hears a voice that sounds familiar. Riaz, keep your hands off him, she says as she is hovering down onto the ground. Burcol looked at her with complete shock while the person holding a spear threw it Ria's way, but then lightning bolt came out of nowhere until another familiar face showed. It was Akeno, the girl from Burcol's class. The person was even more angrier than before. I'm done with you. Then out of nowhere, another girl showed up out of nowhere and kicked him in the gut, and that girl was Kaneko. The person who was holding the spear stood up and recognized the hair from Riaz. Ah, you're from the House of Gremory, I guess. This got Burcol all confused as he still has the spear in his stomach. Riaz, my name is Riaz Gremory, and who are you? Other than a fallen angel. Burcol, who was watching this, was confused of what a fallen angel is, but continued to listen. Well, who knew? This town is currently under control of the next head of the Gremory family. He said to the three girls in front of him. Riaz, if you bring any harm to him you will get no mercy from me. She says to him, but the person just smirked. We'll see about that. As he says that, he brings out his fallen angel wings and took off in the sky. My name is Donasik, I pray that you and I don't ever cross paths ever again. Once he said his name, the sky went back to normal, while Burcol was on one knee still with the spear in his stomach. He got up on 2 feet and pulled the spear out of his stomach. Burcol, I have to get to Master Rashi so he can bandage me up back to full heal. He tries to fly off but falls back to the ground. The girls notice that he was trying fly away. Riaz spoke up. Riaz, I would like to have a word with you, Burcol, we won't hurt you. She says while giving him a warm smile, but Burcol didn't trust any of them. Burcol, I'm gonna have to use instant transmission. When he said that, he put 2 fingers on his forehead to try and sense Rashi's energy. Riaz started walking to him, but by time she got to him, he disappeared. Riaz, Akeno and Kaneko were shocked by this. Riaz, no matter, we can get Kiba to get him tomorrow while we're at school. After she said that, she told Akeno to open up portal to get them back to the orc building. As Akeno opened it up, they all entered the portal and teleported back to the orc building. Hame house. Master Rashi was cooking up dinner for himself and the turtle, then all of a sudden, they see a beaten up Burcol with a massive hole in his stomach. Rashi rushes over to him and gives him a hand to the table. Master Rashi, what happened, my boy, why are you so beaten up? He said as he gave him a concerned look. Burcol notices this and he starts to explain to Rashi to what happened. Time skip. 5 minutes later, after he told Rashi what happened, he was shocked to hear that Issei was killed by this thing called a fallen angel. Burcol was sitting in the chair getting bandaged up by Rashi. Master Rashi, gosh, I'm so sorry to hear about the death of Issei. Burcol, how are you doing after that? When he said that, Burcol turned around to face Rashi and gave him the look. Burcol, what do you think, Rashi? I failed to save my brother cause I was too happy for him cause he got a new girlfriend and such, I let my guard down. He said as he had a single tear rolling down his face. Rashi put his hand on Burcol's shoulder, trying to calm him down. Master Rashi, don't worry my boy, I'm sure you will find that fallen whatever that killed you brother and get rid of it. He said giving him a warm smile. Burcol wipes his cheek and returns the smile. Now there's that smile I wanted to see since you were young. Burcol thanks Master Rashi. After when he said that, Rashi was done bandaging up Burcol, he stood up and faced Master Rashi. Thank you. After when he said that, he went towards the door and flew off back to his house. Hyoudou residence. After when he got home, he went straight to his room and got out of his now damaged school uniform and got changed into a shirt and boxer shorts. After he was done changing, he got into bed and turned the light off and stared at the ceiling. Burcol, I swear to you Issei, when I see the girl again I'm going to show her no mercy. I promise you that. After he said that in his thoughts he fell asleep after existing day. Chapter 6 Meeting the Devils. Burcol was sleeping on the ground in a weird black void. As he woke up he stood straight up to his feet and was wondering where he was. He was confused to where he was, he then brought his hands against his mouth and decided to shout out. Burcol, hello? Is anybody here? As he said that, he could hear his own echo, but there was nothing. What is this place anyway? He was confused to where he was, he then started walking forward to see if he can something or someone in this weird place. Every step that he took, he could hear his own footsteps cause of how big this place was. So we finally meet again my son. I then stopped walking and turned around to see who said that. He didn't see anyone and looked around him to try and find who was talking. Burcol, hello? Who's there? After he said that, he heard footsteps approaching him from behind him. Burcol got into his fighting stance just in case if this person was a foe. This person started to come into view. He had black spiky hair, had a scar on the left-hand side of his face, and also had Saiyan armor on. Burcol notices the tail behind him as well which makes him shocked. Who are you? He just smirks at Burcol. Bardock, I sent my son to planet Earth a long time ago. It's good to finally meet you Burcol. Burcol who just stood there looking dumbfounded was trying to process through this. You finally did it. Burcol looked confused at Bardock. Burcol did what? He said to him. Bardock Super Saiyan, you can finally transform into a Super Saiyan. We Saiyans thought that it was just a myth, but it's actually true. Burcol tried to think what he was talking about until he started to think about the death of his brother and that fallen angel. Do you mind transforming for me son? Burcol, I'll try to. He then separated his legs and tried to focus of the energy. He started screaming and he started to get that same feeling from Issei, his eyes and hair blinking back and forth until he gave off one final scream. And for the third time in Burcol's life, he was in his Super Saiyan form. Bardock just smirks at his son while Burcol was feeling the power for himself, he was astonished by the amount he was releasing. So I'm guessing this is the Super Saiyan form I take it. He nods at Burcol and he dropped out of the form by doing calm breathing. He then looked up to Bardock. Let me ask you something. He gets his attention. Tell me if you really am my father, then why did you send me away when I was a young boy? He was going to speak, but Bardock notices that it is nearly Burcol's time up. Burcol was still waiting for an answer. Hello? Earth to Bardock. He then snaps out of his thought. Bardock, I'm afraid our time is up son, I'll explain everything to you the next time we meet. When he said that, everything around Burcol started shaking and he almost lost his balance. Then all of a sudden, everything started to go white and was becoming harder to see for Burcol. Hyoudou residence. Burcol perked his head up from his bed, looking around his room. He was thinking about that dream he just had with that Saiyan person and him telling him about that form. Burcol, what did that guy said about that form? He said something about that it was a legendary form. He said in his thoughts. The next time I see him, he is going to answer everything that I say. Burcol got out of bed and went to go and get a spare uniform from his wardrobe. Lucky the school gave me a spare. He then brings out the uniform and puts it on. After that he put on his uniform. He went downstairs to get something to eat. He decided to do something easy, so he went to cabinet and grabbed the box of cereal and popped it on the table. He went to the fridge and got the milk and poured it into the cereal box. He sat down and he started eating. After he was finished eating, he got his bag and started walking to school. Hyoudou Academy. When he got to school, he decided to walk around for a little bit just to clear his head cause of that dream he had. When he was walking around, he found an abandoned building, so he decided to go sit down near the building. Burcol, what was that form called again? He was trying to think what that form's name was, then he finally remembered what it was called. Yes, I remember now, it was called Super Saiyan. After that he said that, he was starting to sense something. It was those people that apparently saved Burcol last night. He was trying to sense where they was coming from and it was coming from the building. He freaked out cause he didn't wanted to go near these people and he didn't know they would do to him. He then got up from his feet and started running away cause he didn't wanted to get spotted. I need to get to class anyway, don't want to be late. Once he was far away from the building, he started walking to class, but what he didn't know was there was someone watching him from the window. Riaz, I'll see you after school, Burcol Hyoudou. She said to herself smiling and started to walk away from the window. Classroom. Burcol was in the classroom listening to the teacher do a pop quiz. He kept trying to pay attention, but he got this weird feeling that someone was watching him in class, and his theory was right. Akeno wasn't paying attention at all cause she was looking at Burcol. He started to get uncomfortable, so he raised his hand, and this gets the teacher's attention. Teacher, yes Burcol. She said to him. Burcol, may I go to the bathroom? The teacher just stared him down but nodded her head. Burcol stood up and went to the bathroom. Akeno notices this and gives him a devilish smirk at him. Akeno, trying to get away from me now, huh? After she said that in her thoughts, she then raised her hand. Teacher, may I use the bathroom as well? After she said that, Burcol, who was walking out of the door, stopped dead in his tracks. He then turned around, faced her. Akeno just smiled at him. Burcol, please say no. Burcol was praying that the teacher would say no, but she nodded her head at Akeno. She then got out of her sit and started walk with Burcol. Bastard. Teacher, make sure yous two come back alright. Akeno nodded her head at the teacher. She then turned her head towards Burcol. Akeno, come on Burcol, we don't want to be late, right? She said as she gave him a smile. Burcol just looked away. Burcol, alright. The two of them started walking towards the bathroom together and Burcol stayed silent while Akeno was just giggling to herself. What is she giggling at? Akeno, it's such a wonderful day today, isn't it? She said to Burcol, but he just stayed silent. Akeno notices this and speaks up again. Oh, not much of a towel. She didn't get to finish her sentence cause Burcol interrupted her. Burcol, okay, what do you want with me? I know you're not going to the bathroom, you only came out here to annoy me, so start talking now, he said as he stopped walking, facing Akeno. She was thrown off guard cause she didn't know he was going to say something. Akeno, look Burcol, we only just want to talk to you, that's it. We're not going to cause any trouble, I promise you. She said as he gave Burcol a warm smile. Burcol started to go red as Akeno continued to give him the warm smile. Akeno notices this and she wanted to tease him. Your cheeks are starting to go red Burcol, she said as she started to giggle at Burcol. Burcol, no I'm not, I don't know what you're talking about, he said shouting. Akeno continued to giggle. Akeno, I'm only teasing you, calm down. She then stopped giggling and faced Burcol. Like I said before, we only want to talk to you, that's it. Burcol was trying to think if he could trust these people or not. Burcol, it depends of what y'all want to talk about. Akeno, the president would probably talk to you about it, I don't know very much, well I do, but she doesn't tell me much. She said to Burcol. He was about to speak, but he was cut off. The president has sent someone to get you after school so they can take you to the meeting. Burcol just sighs at this. Burcol, okay fine, I'll go with yous, but if yous try any funny business like try and kill me or something, I'll show all of you no mercy. Akeno just nods her head at Burcol. Now we should probably head back to class now. As he was walking back, Akeno called out to him. Akeno, I thought you were heading to the bathroom. Burcol stops walking and turns back to face her. Burcol, who said I was heading to the bathroom, I was only trying to get away from you. Akeno walked up to Burcol. Akeno, and why's that? She said as she had a smile on her face. Burcol, I don't know, you would have tried and did something of me. After he said that, Akeno decided to tease him again. Akeno, and I'm wondering what you were thinking about then, were you have hexual thoughts about me? Burcol stepped back a little with a freaked out face. Akeno giggled a little and whispered something in Burcol's ear. It's okay, I don't mind if you were thinking about me like that. Burcol's face was all red. We should head back to class now before the teacher finds out where we left off to. Burcol nods his head as his face was still red and the two of them went back to class. After they got back to class, they went back to their seat and continued on with their work. Time skip. End of the day. It was the end of the day and Burcol was in his seat just resting his head on the desk until he heard the girls squeal about something. He popped his head up to see what was happening. He saw the girls were all together standing near the doorway and someone came in and it was Kiba. Kiba, hello ladies, you are all looking wonderful. He said to all the girls, which makes half of them blush. One of the girls spoke up. Girl 2, you look better. Burcol, I wonder why is he? He said in his thoughts, then Kiba started walking towards him. Kiba, hey Burcol, you're looking better than ever. He said while giving Burcol a smile. Burcol did the same back. Burcol, hey Kiba, not really but thanks for the compliment. He said to him. Anyway, what are you doing here Kiba? Kiba just continued smiling at him. Kiba, I've come to pick you up cause you have to speak to someone. Burcol didn't say a word, he just nodded at Kiba and stood up from his desk. All the girls around the classroom were watching Burcol and Kiba talk. Girl 1, oh my god, the two princes are talking to each other. After she said that, Burcol just sweat dropped while Kiba was just used to it. So the two of them left the classroom and went to the orc building. The two of them were just having a friendly chat as they were walking. Burcol could see that the sun was starting to set. The two of them finally arrived at the building and they both walked in. As they walk in, Burcol could see that the room was dark with candles lit around the room. He also saw the white hair girl that he saw from yesterday from that fallen angel fight. She was eating a piece of chocolate while she's sitting down on the couch. Burcol, hey, you're that girl that I saw yesterday at the park. Kaneko was about to take another bite but stopped and looked at Burcol. She just stared at him while holding the chocolate in her hand. Kiba, oh, you two know each other? He said to Burcol. Burcol, her, Akeno and their president saved me from the fallen angel yesterday. If they didn't show up I wouldn't be standing in this room right now. Burcol said as he was facing Kiba. Kiba, you don't know her name Burcol? He shook his head. Her name is Kaneko Taoju, she's a first-year student at this school. Kaneko didn't pay attention to what Kiba was saying cause she went back to eating her chocolate. Burcol was about to speak up but he heard a shower. Burcol looked over to his left and saw someone through it. He then heard Kaneko speak up. Kaneko, it's not right to spy. She said as she continued to eat her chocolate. Burcol just stared at her. Burcol, I was not starring at all, I'm not a pervert. Kaneko didn't listen, she continued to eat her chocolate. Thanks for listening to me. Then he heard a familiar voice enter the room. Akeno, oh Burcol, so nice of you to join us. She said as she walked through the door. She then started to walk towards Burcol. Burcol, I don't really trust this girl so much, she's so weird around me. She then stopped in front of him and she bowed down to him. After she was done with that, she lifted her body up which made her breasts move. Burcol noticed that and freaked out a little but kept his composure. Akeno, I've laid your clothes outside the shower president. She said to Riaz that was taking a shower. Riaz, thank you Akeno. After that she said that, she got out of the shower and started to dry herself. After she was done drying herself, she then started to put some clothes on. She then exited the room to see everyone just sitting at the couches besides from Burcol. Burcol noticed that everyone was sitting down, so he decided to join everyone. Now that everyone is here, let's have a chat Burcol. Burcol, okay. What do you want to talk about? He says while staring at Riaz. Riaz, tell me Burcol, do you believe in the supernatural? Burcol was confused about all of this, but he just nods his head. What are you Burcol? Cause we can tell that you are not human. After Riaz said that, Burcol just sighed and stood up, surprising everyone. Burcol, well I guess there's no hiding this then. Everyone was confused of what he was saying. Burcol started to unwrap something around his wrist. Once he was done, everyone was shocked at what they are looking at. It was a monkey tail. And to answer your question, yes, I'm indeed not human. I'm what they call as a Saiyan. Everyone tilted their heads and they were confused. Everybody Saiyan. Riaz, I don't really know what that is exactly, do you mind telling us what they are? Burcol closed his eyes and shook his head. May I ask why? She says to Burcol. Burcol, cause I don't really know my race very well because I was sent of my home planet when I was little and I don't really remember anything. Everyone was shocked that he was sent off his planet when his was still baby. Burcol looked sad but changed his face straight away. Riaz, I'm sorry to hear about that. She said to Burcol as she was putting on a sad face. Can I ask you something Burcol? He nodded. What was that energy and power that you were releasing the other day? Burcol knew what she was talking about, she was talking about the Super Saiyan form. Burcol, the energy and power you are talking about is a form that was supposed to be a myth for us Saiyans, it's called Super Saiyan. Riaz and the others sounded interested in the form. Riaz stood up from her desk. Riaz, can we see this form of yours? Burcol was thinking if they could see the form. Burcol, I still don't trust them yet, so I'm going to say no. No you can't, because I still don't know who you people are and you might just use me for power. Riaz walked up to him. Riaz, we are not those kind of people, we promise you that, Burcol. She said as she gave him gentle smile. Burcol just sighed and looked her in the eyes. Burcol, fine, but stand back though. And that goes for all of you too. Everyone nodded and stood at the back of the room. Burcol got into his stance and started tensing his body. He did one loud scream and he turned into a Super Saiyan. Everyone now looking at a blonde-hair Burcol with tear-green eyes. They were all astonished by the power that Burcol was releasing. Surprised. Everyone nodded. Riaz, I'm shocked that you can even release that kind of power. Tiba, you're not wrong there, President. Kaneko, super rad. Everyone was shocked by the power that he was releasing, but Akeno Burcol was kind of freaked out by her response. Akeno, you with that blonde hair is making me so hot. She then licked her fingers, which makes Burcol freak out a little. He dropped out of his Super Saiyan and looked everyone. Oh, you look so cute with that form though. He blushes at her words but was able to compose himself. Burcol, now, it's only fair you tell me what all of you are now since I've told you. He says while he sat back down. Riaz, very well. Everyone went back to their seats while Riaz went to lean in front of her desk. Since you've told us, it's only fair that we tell you now. We are devils. After when she said that, her and her group brought out their devil wings, which surprises Burcol. You seem surprised. She said with a devilish smirk. Burcol, well, how can I not be? And ain't devils supposed to have big horns and big teeth and such? This causes the whole room to laugh, which confuses Burcol. What? Is it something I said? He said to everyone. Riaz, well, not exactly, devils do appear to look like humans. She said as she stopped laughing, so did everybody else. And just so you know, we're not the only devils at this school, Burcol. Burcol, so you're saying there are more devils at this school? She nodded at Burcol. Ha, no wonder why I was sensing the same energy from different people, it's because you are all devils. She nodded again. Riaz, and I almost forgot to mention that I am part of the 3 powerful family houses in the devil race. Burcol was shocked to hear that but continued to listen. One house is the Citri, another is the House of Phoenix. She hesitated to say that word. And my family, House of Gremory. And my brother Serzich's Lucifer is the ruler of hell. Burcol was even more shocked than before. Burcol, wow, your brother is the ruler of hell. That's cool, he said as he stood up. Well, I'm guessing that you're done talking with me? She shook her head at Burcol. Okay. What is there to talk about now? Riaz got of her desk and walked towards Burcol. Riaz, I want to make a proposal with you. Burcol was confused about her proposal. I want you to become a part of my peerage. Burcol was surprised to hear that. You will be granted more power and be able to live for 1000s of years. So Burcol, what do you say? Burcol was unsure about this, he put his hand on his chin and was thinking about it. Burcol, thanks for the offer, but my answer is no. Everyone in the room was shocked, including Riaz. Riaz, may I ask why you decline? She said to the Saiyan. Burcol just smiled at this. Burcol, I want to be able to gain my power by me pushing myself, and I don't want to live for that long as well. Because I don't want to watch the people around me that I call friends die of old age. Everyone was saddened by his decision. Now, is that everything? No one talked, they just stayed silent, meaning that Burcol could leave now. Well, it was nice chat, but I gotta get home, Saya. After he said that, he walked out of the door leaving everyone quiet. Akeno broke the silence. Akeno, that's probably the first time someone has rejected your offer, Riaz. She turned to Akeno and just nodded. Riaz, I'm not going to give up on him, I'll think of something. She then looked at everyone. You may all leave now. They all stood up and bowed to Riaz and left the orc building. Riaz went back to her sit and went into thought. I will find a way to get you Burcol Hyoudou. Streets. Burcol was walking home at night and he was thinking about Riaz's offer that he said no to. Burcol, why did she ask me to join her group? He said as he was still thinking. Maybe I was wrong about them, they don't seem like bad people to me. Then all of a sudden, the sky went dark. What the he then heard a voice coming down the street. So you're still alive after taking 2 spears into the stomach. Burcol turned around and saw a woman with blue hair and she was wearing some weird clothing. Burcol, who are you? He said to the woman who was walking slowing up the street. My name is Kalwarner and I'm here to get rid of you for good. She then got out her fallen angel wings and summoned a spear. Burcol got into his fighting stance. Burcol, guess I'm gonna have to get rid of you then, cause I hate you fallen angels. He then disappeared and appeared in front of her, he kicked her in the head and she was sent flying down the street. She was laying down on the road while Burcol was slowly approaching her. Kalwarner slowly stood up to her feet and faced Burcol. Kalwarner, how are you so strong? She says to Burcol, who has stopped walking. He doesn't even answer, he just stares at her. If you won't answer me then I'll just summon spear kill you. She then threw the spear at Burcol. Burcol just stood there not moving. As it got closer to his face, he grabbed it by the tip and broke it in half. Halwarner starts to get scared and she's ready to fly away. I'm getting out of here, she says while flying off, but Burcol wasn't going to let her escape. Burcol, I'm not going to let her escape, she's probably killed way too many people, and I think this is a perfect way to send the trainer girl a message. He then brought his hands together and started saying these words. Kami Hami. He then let out a scream. The beam was traveling towards Halwarner. She went to turn around to see what it was, and it didn't look good for her. It hit her instantly cause of how fast the Kamehameha was traveling. She then started screaming to death and her body was no more. Burcol put his hands down and started walking home again. Hyoudou residence. Burcol finally got home and was ready to hit the hay. He went straight to his bedroom and got changed out of his school uniform and into boxer shorts and a shirt. He hopped into bed and turned the light off and stared into the ceiling. Burcol, more fallen angels are going to be after me now since I killed one of them. Well, I don't care, to be honest. I'll take on the whole army of fallen angels if I have to, and don't worry, Issei, I will find Rainer for you. After he said that, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. Chapter 7, helping a nun. Burcol was slowly waking up and he found himself out of space. He was confused. He started looking around until he found a planet behind him. He started to approach the planet until he found something heading towards the planet. It was a massive ball of energy heading towards the planet. Burcol was shocked at what he was looking at. Burcol, what is happening right now? As he said that, the blast made contact with the planet, destroying it. The planet exploded, pushing Burcol back with a shockwave cause of how strong it was. He saw that the planet was not there anymore, all he saw was little pieces off the planet. He then started to sense something else as well. He turned around and there was a black figure. Burcol couldn't see him. All he saw was a massive Kai blast coming at him. He tried stopping it, but it was no use. It ended up hitting Burcol. Hyoudou residences. Burcol woke up, he was padding heavily, and he pinched himself to make sure he still wasn't in no dream. He did that breathing techniques and it worked. Burcol, what are with this weird dreams I've been having? First the whole thing with that Bardock guy and now with this whole blowing up planet thing. He said as he rubbed his eyes as he got up for school. He also remembered something else, there was a black figure there as well. Burcol couldn't really see this person well, but he was wondering why he was in his dream. He decided to worry about when he starts walking to school. He got his school uniform out and he popped it on. He went downstairs and started to make himself breakfast. He got the bacon, egg, bread, knife and fork out. After he was done making his breakfast, he sat down at the table and ate up all his food within 30 seconds. I think that might be a new record for me, haha, he said as he was laughing at himself. Then he brought something else up. It feels so weird not waking up to Issei, cause normally I'd be done with my breakfast while he's still getting dressed for school. He laughed a little but turned into a sad face. I miss you, Issei, I will never forget the memories we had with each other. Little bit of tears came out of his eyes. He realizes this and quickly wipes the tears away. I should probably be getting to school now. He then went to go pick his bag up and started to go to school. Streets. Burcol was in thought as he was walking to school. He kept trying to think who that person was, but nothing was coming to him. Burcol, who was that guy? Why can't I picture what he looks like? After he said that, he heard someone fall over. He turned around to see who it was, and it was a girl who tripped over who was showing her panties. Burcol's face went red and he quickly looked away, trying not to be a pervert. He then heard the girl speak up. Ouch, damn it, I'm such a klutz. She then notices Burcol just standing there looking at the girl. Burcol approached her. Burcol, hey, are you okay there? He then offered his hand to the girl to help her up. She then grabbed his hand. Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. As she got back up to her feet, the wind started to pick up and it blew off her veil. Burcol was now staring at a beautiful blonde-hair girl with green eyes. Both of them were looking at each other. Burcol looked down to his hand and he's still holding the girl's hand. He quickly let go. Burcol, sorry, he then blushes and so does the girl. The wind started to pick up again and the veil started to blow away. Burcol quickly got it before it got away. He picked it up and handed it to the girl. Thank you. She said to Burcol with a warm smile. Burcol did the same thing. Burcol, no problem. He said to the girl. Hey, are you new in town? Yes, I actually am. I was trying to find a church, but I got myself lost. She then puts her two fingers together while looking down. I was hoping that you can help me find the way to the church. It's okay if you can't, if you have other stuff going on, it just would really help me. Burcol smiles at the girl and nods his head. Burcol, sure, I would love to help you, besides I always like to help other people. She was happy that someone could show her where the church is. Come on, I'll lead the way. Thank you, that is really sweet of you. Then the both of them started walking together to find the church. Thank you again for helping me, if I didn't run into you then I would probably never find the church. She says as she had her face down. Burcol, hey, no problem. Say, I forgot to ask, but are you a tourist? he said, asking the girl. She perked her head up and looked at Burcol. Oh no, not at all. As a matter of a fact, I was assigned to serve the church in this town. Burcol, right, then you're a nun then, that would explain your clothes that you're wearing right now, haha. Then all of a sudden, Burcol started to get an image in his head. It was the planet blowing up from his dream. He still doesn't know why he had that dream, but he will get every answer out of that guy from the other night. The girl notices Burcol's face that he was thinking of something. Hey, is there something wrong? Burcol notices this and smiles at the girl, letting her know that he is fine. Burcol, yeah, I'm fine, I appreciate your concern. He said to the girl. I can't get these images out of my head, what is it telling me? Then Burcol heard a boy crying at the park. Burcol looked to his left and he saw the boy on the ground holding his knee. Burcol and the girl ran up to the boy and Burcol was about to say something but noticed that the girl leaned down next to the boy. What is she doing? There's no need to cry over a silly scratch. Then Burcol started to feel some energy and that energy was coming out of that ring. Everything around them started to shine green. As the light started to die down, Burcol looked at the boy's knee and to him and the boy's surprise, the scratch was gone. You see, there is no need to cry. Burcol was standing there with a surprised look. The girl turned around to face him. All done now, sorry. She then stuck her tongue out. They continued walking towards the church and Burcol would try and sense the energy from the ring when they were walking. Burcol, strange. Why can't I sense that energy anymore? And why do I keep having these images? The girl noticed that Burcol was looking at her ring. You seem surprised. She got Burcol out of his thoughts and he smiled at her. Burcol, nah, not at all. That sure is great power that you have there. This causes the nun girl to smile at Burcol's comment. Thank you, I consider it to be a gift and a blessing. This causes Burcol to smile more at the girl, then she said something underneath her breath. Truly, it's wonderful. She then put on a sad face and Burcol noticed it. He was going to ask her something, but she spoke up again. Hey, there it is. This causes Burcol to look up at the distance. He sees the church just up the hill. Burcol, that's the church all right. And probably the only one we have. He said as he laughed a little. Then all of a sudden, he started to sense evil and menacing energy from the church. This energy I'm sensing right now, it's so dark and menacing. Why does she want to go to that church? I then start to sense her to see if she was giving off that same energy, but no. She was just pure of heart. Thank goodness I found it, that's good. She then turned her head towards Burcol with a smile. Let me thank you properly, would you like to come inside with me? Burcol smiled at her. Burcol, I'd love to, but I got somewhere to be right now. She then put on a flown face. Oh, that's okay. Guess I should go too. She then put on a smile back on her face. It was so sweet of you helped find my way. My name is Asia Argento. She said as she said her name. Burcol, and my name is Burcol Hyoudou, and you are very welcome. He said as he gave her a smile. Asia Burcol, huh? Now that's a weird name. She then started to laugh at his name. Burcol did the same. Anyway, meeting you here was a blessing. And I know for sure it's one I won't forget. I hope we see each other again. Burcol, yeah, me too. Then they both smiled at each other. Asia, if you're ever around the area, come visit me at the church if you like. Cause that's where I'll be. He then nodded his head with a smile. Burcol, will do, Asia. Well, I gotta go now, Saya. He said as he was waving at Asia. She did the same back to him. They both go their separate ways while Burcol was walking away smiling. That's probably one of the most nicest girls I've ever met. Puo Academy. Burcol was sitting at his desk, listening to the teacher. Burcol would look around the room to see if Akeno was in the room and she was. Then someone came walking into the room. Burcol was shocked to who he was looking at. It was Riaz. Burcol, how come I haven't seen her in class before? And why is she showing up now? Burcol said in his thoughts. Riaz would go and sit next to Akeno and she also notices that Burcol was here too. Riaz would give Burcol a smile. He notices this and looks away trying not to blush. Riaz stopped looking at him and finally sat down at her seat. Burcol went back to listening to the teacher and all of a sudden he started getting the same images that he dreamed about, which was giving him a real bad headache. My head hurts cause these images keep popping back in my head. He then stood up from his desk, which caused everybody to look at him including both Akeno and Riaz. The teacher stopped writing on the chalkboard and looked at Burcol. Teacher, is something wrong, Burcol? She said as she had concerned look. Burcol looked at her and spoke up. Burcol, see, can I go for a walk around? I got a real bad headache. The teacher glared at him for a second and she nodded at him. Burcol walked towards the classroom door, grabbing his head a little. No one noticed him grabbing his head except for Riaz and Akeno. Burcol was now walking down the hallway, trying to clear his head. He didn't understand why he was getting these, but it was starting to annoy him. Grrrr, what is it telling me? After he said that, Burcol started to remember something from his past. Flashback. Burcol was crying in a weird spaceship and something was carrying him, he didn't know who it was, but he heard them talking about something. Bardock, why are you going through so much trouble? It's not like a Saiyan man to be worried about his children. The weird lady saying to the person named Bardock. Burcol be Bardock. Wait, that's the person I met in my dream. He said as he was remembering what was happening. Then Bardock started to speak up. Bardock, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm always fighting, destroying and I like to save something for once. He then put down the spaceship and he started to set something up. I've programmed this to a distant planet called Earth. The people on that planet have low power levels and ain't technology advanced. Then the woman started to look through the tinted red glass as she a sad face on her. I think he would be able to do well there, Jine. Burcol, so this is supposed to be my mother? Why does she look so sad? He said as he was still thinking and looking back at his flashback. Jine then started to speak up. Jine, if your father turns to be wrong, we'll come and get you. Burcol then looks at Bardock. Bardock, listen son, you do whatever it takes to survive, got it? Burcol and his past self were looking at their father with a weird look. Baby Burcol, huh? Burcol W, what does he mean do whatever it takes to survive? Jine, we'll see you very soon. She started to have tears in her eyes. Burcol noticed that Bardock was putting his hand on the red tinted window and his past self did the same from inside the ship. Bardock, goodbye my son. After when he said that, the ship started to take off in the sky. Burcol notices Jine running and stopped where she was. Jine, don't forget us. Burcol was shocked to hear those words again cause those were the same words that she said as he left in that ship years ago. She then dropped to her knees and started crying. Bardock walked up behind her and he started to comfort her. Burcol was going to say something, but it cut to a different scene where he was out of space again. He was confused to why he was here again, he went to turn around and he saw that same planet he saw in his dream last night. Burcol, it's this image again. He then saw something else as well. It was the same blast that was heading towards the planet again. Then all of a sudden he finally figured it out after all this years of why he was sent of his planet. Because it was destroyed by that big blast. After when the blast hits the planet, the flashback ends there. End of flashback. Burcol, I think I understand now. The reason why my parents sent me away was because they were protecting me from that blast. Burcol was in total shock after the flashback he just had. He was just standing there until someone called out to him. Kiba, are you okay there, Burcol? He turned his head around to see Kiba standing there. Burcol didn't say anything, he just walked right past him. Kiba called out to him again. Burcol didn't listen, he kept walking back to his classroom. What's gotten into him all of a sudden? He said to himself in his thoughts. As Burcol got back to his classroom, everyone looked at him, especially the teacher. Teacher, great you're back, take a seat Burcol. Burcol just nodded at the teacher and went to his seat to sit down. Time skip. End of the day. It was now the end of the day and Burcol was now packing up his stuff and was going to head home. As he packed the last of his stuff, he went straight home. As he got outside of the school building, he was looking for a good spot to fly off to cause he was too lazy to walk home today. Burcol, where's a good spot to fly off to? He was looking for good spot to fly off to. As he was looking, he spotted the roof. Perfect, I'll use the roof to fly back home and once I probably get back, I go out and train cause it's been a while since I last trained. Burcol then walked back inside the school building to head to the roof. He got to the doors that head to the roof and they seemed to be locked. Burcol looked around to see if nobody was watching him. He then pulled the door off its hinges. Burcol was now standing on the roof and he started to take off into the sky to head home. Hyoudou residence. Burcol was now at the front of his house and he went straight to his room to get out of his school uniform. Burcol got changed into his Saiyan armor and walked out of his room and went downstairs to get something. He got to the kitchen and he opened up the refrigerator and got out some apples. He then left the house and went to the usual spot he goes to train. Woods. Burcol got to the spot that he usually trains at and he was thinking of what to do for training. Burcol, maybe I'll do warm-ups like 10,000 sit-ups, 10,000 push-ups, and where's that big rock the last time I was here? He was looking around the area to find that rock he was using the last time he was training here. He looked over to his left and he found. And I'll probably do 5,000 lifts with that rock. He then started doing his warm-ups. Time skip. 15 minutes later, after doing the last lift of that rock, he sat down and took a bite out of his apple. After taking a break and finishing the apple, he decided to do something else to kill time. He then came up with an idea. Burcol, maybe I should train in that Super Saiyan form and try and master it. Burcol then spreads legs and started to power up. Then all of a sudden, he was now in his Super Saiyan form. He decided to throw some punches and kicks in the air. After a few minutes of practicing in the Super Saiyan form, he then dropped down to the floor and dropped out of that form as well. He went to go sit down a nearby log and take a break before he goes home. And now I haven't trained like that in a long time. he said as he was out of breath. After a few minutes of taking a break, he then stood up from the log and started to stretch. I think it's time to go home now. He then took off in the sky and went home. Streets. Burcol was flying through the streets of Kuo, and all of a sudden he started to sense energy coming from an abandoned building. The energy was just evil, and Burcol wanted to check it out, but that's not all. He started to sense 4 other energies coming from the building, and he knew what these energies were. It was Ria's, Akeno, Kaneko and Kiba. He was wondering why they were at that abandoned building with that evil energy. He decided to go check it out. He landed outside the building and he saw from outside, Ria's. Burcol approached the entrance to see what that evil energy is. Once he was inside, he saw Ria's, Akeno, Kaneko and Kiba fighting off a weird monster. This monster had a weird-looking body on her lower half and he could see her breast. Burcol what the hell is that? Everyone turned around to see Burcol there with an embarrassed face. Ria's. Burcol, what are you doing here? She says to Burcol. He looked at Ria's. Burcol, I started to sense energy coming from this building and I wanted to check it out, but I wasn't expecting this. He said as he pointed at the monster. Ria's, that thing is called a stray devil. There are devils that go rogue and kill their masters. Burcol was disgusted by that. Then Burcol got an idea. Burcol, hey Ria's, do you mind if I fight this thing by myself? After when he said that, Ria's gave him a smirk and nodded her head. Ria's, be careful you. He just nodded his head and started walking towards the stray devil. Kiba called out to him. Kiba. Burcol, no, it will kill you, she said to him. Ria's turned her head towards Akeno and smiled. Ria's, it's alright Kiba. Besides, I want to see what power he has. Burcol was now standing in front of the devil and she just gave him an evil smirk. Stray devil, oh my, what's this? It looks like this human wants to be killed by me. Well, don't worry. You will be dead soon enough. The stray devil went to hit Burcol with her big fist and Burcol stood there with a cocky smirk on his face. The devil smashed the ground where Burcol was standing and made a huge crater in the ground. Everyone but Ria's was shocked. Akeno, Kaneko and Kiba. Ria's just stood there with a smirk on her face. Stray devil, ha 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 ha, pathetic. He didn't even move and got himself killed. Akeno, Kaneko and Kiba were mad at this and were going to do something until they heard a voice on top of them. Burcol, I'm not the type of person to get killed that easily. The stray devil was confused. She turned around and looked up to see the same person still alive. Now it's my turn. He then dived at her, punching straight in the face. She fell to the ground. All the devil in the room were shocked of how Burcol was able to punch a devil that hard with his strength. Burcol then landed next to the stray and started to pick her up. Once he picked up the stray, he threw her up in the sky and started to use another of his techniques. Masenko yellow beams started to go towards the stray up in the air. As it hit her, there was a massive explosion in the sky, meaning the blast killed her instantly. The other devils who were watching were in complete shock that someone like Burcol was able to defeat a stray devil. Burcol turned around to face the others. Oh, that wasn't really a challenge. Ria's, incredible Burcol. I've never seen that kind of power before. She smiled at Burcol. Burcol then started to walk away. Burcol, well, I'll see you's back at school. As he was walking away, Ria's called out him. Ria's. Burcol, wait. Burcol stopped walking and turned around to face the others. I was thinking, I know you said you don't want to join and I understand that now. I've accepted that, especially after seeing you fight. But, what do you think about joining the occult research club anyway? As friends. Burcol was thinking about the decision that Ria's offered to Burcol. He stopped thinking and looked at everyone and smiled. Burcol, alright, I'll do it. Maybe now I'll have some excitement. I've been so bored. Ria's and the others were happy to hear that Burcol would be able to help them out around the orc. Ria's, that's great to hear Burcol. She then turned to everyone else. Alright everyone, let's go home, shall we? Everyone nodded at Ria's. Everyone was about to leave until Kiba went up to Burcol. Kiba, hey Burcol. This gets his attention. Why didn't you answer back to me when I called out to you? After when he said that, this gets the girl's attention. Burcol remembered what he was talking about. Burcol, yeah, sorry if I ignored you like that. It's just that I remembered something from my past. Everyone gives him a surprised look. He went to speak up again. If you want to hear about it, then I might come around the orc tomorrow and talk about it. Everyone nodded at Burcol. Well, I'm gonna hit the hay, I'll see you all tomorrow. Everyone said their goodbye to Burcol and he left the building and took off to the sky and went home. Hyoudou residence. Burcol got home after training out in the woods for a little bit and facing a stray. He went to the shower to get the sweat of him. He was in the shower, thinking of how crazy today was. With a flashback he had back at school and to him getting asked to join the occult research club as a friend. He then turned off the shower and went straight to his bedroom to get changed into sleeping gear. He got changed and he was feeling tired from today, so he decided to head to bed. Time skip. The next day. It was now the next day and Burcol was still sleeping. He slowly started to wake up and went to go check what time it was. He went wide-eyed as he saw the time, he was 20 minutes late. Burcol quickly got up from bed, got dressed and headed downstairs. He decided not to haste breakfast as he would waste more time, so he left the house and headed straight to school. Hyoudou Academy. Burcol arrived at school and was heading straight to his class. As soon he got to classroom, everyone in the room including Riaz and Akeno looked at him and the teacher as well. "Teacher, young man, why are you so late?" she said as she had her arms crossed and foot tapping the ground. Burcol gulped. Burcol well, I was on, my alarm didn't go off too late. "I'm so sorry Mrs. and it will never happen again." The teacher just glared at Burcol, making him sweat. "Teacher, don't let it happen again. Now go take a seat now Burcol." Burcol nodded and went straight to his seat. Burcol looked over at Riaz and Akeno and they were both giggling to each other. Burcol was confused about this but didn't really care about it. Time skip. End of the day. Burcol was now done with another day of school. He was now packing up his stuff until two girls came over to Burcol's desk. Burcol looked up and it was none other than Riaz and Akeno. "Akeno, hey Burcol," she said while giving Burcol a sweet smile. Burcol blushed a little but was composure himself. "Burcol, why yeah hello Akeno," he said looking away. He then looked back at the two of them. "So what are you guys doing anyway?" "Riaz, we were actually heading to the orc building and we were wondering you like to come with us." Burcol smiled at the two girls. Burcol, "Sure, just let me pack up the last of my stuff and we will head over." The girls nodded at Burcol and waited for him to pack up. After he packed up the last of his stuff, him and the girls started walking towards the orc building. Once they were by themselves, Burcol started to unwrap his tail around his waist. Riaz and Akeno noticed this. Burcol looked at them with a confused look. "What?" It was starting to feel uncomfortable so I wanted to let it out. "Riaz, can I ask you something Burcol?" He nodded his head. "Riaz, did your adoptive parents know that you had a tail?" Burcol, "Yeah, they did. They found me in a space pod just outside of the city years ago." Both Riaz and Akeno were kinda surprised by this. After their talk they finally made to the building, they were just waiting for Kiba and Kaneko. "Akeno, would you like some tea Riaz?" She smiled and nodded her head. She then turned her head towards Burcol. "Would you like some to Burcol?" He really never had tea before but he wanted to give it a try. Burcol, "Sure, I really haven't had tea before but I'll give it a try." Akeno then left the room to go make the tea for Riaz and Akeno. After a few minutes, Akeno came back with a tray which probably tea on it. Akeno brought the over to Riaz first. "Riaz, thank you Akeno." She then went over to Burcol and Akeno passed him the tea. "Burcol, thanks Akeno." He then drank the tea until hot. The two girls laughed at Burcol at how fast he was drinking the tea. "Ooh, Akeno, you have to sip at it Burcol." She giggled a little bit. He then started to sip at it. After a few minutes of Burcol sipping at the tea slowly, Kiba and Kaneko came through the doors. "Kiba, hey everyone." This gets everyone to turn towards the doors. Kiba notices Burcol sitting down on the couch. "Oh hey Burcol, I didn't see you there." Burcol smiled at Kiba and waved at him. Kiba and Kaneko went to go sit down at the couches. "Burcol, I'm guessing that now everyone is here, you all wanna hear about my past." Everyone nodded. "Well, I'll get started then." Burcol starts off about how he has been having these weird dreams lately. He had a dream about his Saiyan father and how he has been telling him how the form is a myth. He then went on to tell that had flashback about his father and mother of him, sending him away because of his planet getting destroyed by a massive blast. And that's pretty much everything for now. After Burcol telling them about the dreams he's had in his past, they were all shocked to hear all of that from Burcol. Riaz, wow, Burcol. I didn't know that your family and planet were blown up. Sorry to hear that. Burcol then looked up to Riaz. Burcol, thanks for your concern Riaz, but I'm fine. He shows her his smile which actually makes her blush a little bit. No one notices this except for Akeno. Riaz was able to compose herself. She then stands up. Riaz, right everyone, I think that will be all for today, all of you are dismissed. Everyone said their goodbyes and left the room. Burcol was the last one to leave the room, he said goodbye to Riaz and he left the room. Riaz went back to her seat and she kept getting this feeling in her heart. What is this weird feeling that I'm getting? His smile, am I? She then shook her head. No Riaz, no. Streets. Burcol was above the streets of Kuo and he was returning home until he started to feel some creepy energy coming from the house up ahead. He decided to go check it out. Burcol was now landing in front of this stranger's house. He started walking up towards the door and to his surprise, the door was halfway open. Burcol, I'm getting a really bad feeling about this. He said that as he walked into the house. It was all dark except for the one room in front of Burcol. He slowly started to approach the room and he started to sense that creepy energy again. As he stepped inside that room, he was examining the room. He took another step and he heard some squishy stuff right below him. He looked down to see what it was and it looked like some kind of liquid. Burcol bent over to touch it to see what kind of liquid it was, and it was blood. He was disgusted and grossed out by this. What kind of sick freak did this? He then started to hear another voice. Punish the wicked, words to live by. Burcol then turns his head towards the couch and he sees a man sitting down facing the other direction. Yes, wise advice from a holy man. He then turns his head and faces Burcol with a creepy smile with his tongue out. Burcol was just disgusted by this, how he killed those people. He then stood up. Well, you just walked into the wrong house, my friend. He then bows to Burcol. Fried Selson, at your service. And you must be that shitty little human that Issei was talking about. Burcol started to grit his teeth cause of the stuff that this guy was saying. Burcol, why you did this to those people, he said to the priest. He just gave Burcol the creepy smile again. Fried, I somehow had to get your attention, so killing those people was the way to get you here. He then started laughing. Burcol was getting more angrier. Burcol, those people didn't even stand a chance against this sick bastard. And by the clothes he is wearing, he's a priest. Then out of nowhere, he got out some light sword and a pistol. Fried, well human, it was nice having this little chat, but it is time for you to die. He then charged at Burcol and tried to slash him with his sword, but Burcol moved out of the way very fast. Fried charged at him again and started swing his sword towards Burcol. But he had no luck, Burcol just kept dodging his sword attacks. Just die you human piece of shit. He then tried to him with his sword again, but Burcol grabbed the tip of the sword. Fried was shocked at this and tried pulling his sword back towards him, but he had no luck. Burcol then pulled the sword towards him, causing Fried to get pulled as well. Burcol brought his fist up and punched him straight in the face, making him fall to the ground. Fried looked up to Burcol, who has his hand out, charging up a Kai blast. Who the hell are you? Burcol, I'm just someone that's just gonna put you out of your misery. His Kai blast was getting blighter. Fried then got onto his hands and placed his hands together. Fried, please have mercy, I'll leave this place, and Nevdadi then gets kicked in the face by Burcol. Burcol, those people over there beg for their lives, and you think I'll let you go after what you did? Say goodbye. As Burcol was going to finish him off, he heard a scream. He was confused, so he turned around to see who it was, and it came to his shock. It was Asia, the nun that Burcol helped out yesterday. Asia was standing there, looking at the dead corpses over in the living room. Ska. Burcol held on to his stomach. He staggered back a little, and Fried stood back up and picked up his sword. He then had an evil smirk on his face as he was walking towards Burcol. Fried, hahaha, nice distraction, Asia. She then looked over to Fried and she notices Burcol here too. Now be a good little human and get on your knees. He then sliced Burcol's right leg and he fell onto one leg screaming. Well, it was nice having this little fight with you, but he then put the onto Burcol's neck. It's time for you to die. He was getting ready to kill him until Asia stepped in front of Burcol. Asia, please don't, I beg you for mercy, forgive this man for his sins, father. Couldn't we just let him go? Burcol was shocked by this. Fried, move out of the way, Asia, and why should I let him live? With that kind of strength from him, he could be a big threat for the fallen angels. Asia, there's goodness in him, I know it. You can't just kill him, how could you actually believe how the father would improve? Burcol notices the priest is getting angry. Fried, enough of this bullshit. He then went to slash at her, but he only slashed the top half of her clothes, leaving her exposed. She then tries to cover her breast. Burcol, stop, don't touch her. He tried getting back up, but he fell back onto one leg. He then notices Fried starting to approach Asia. Fried, have you lost your bucking mind? What, are there maggots growing inside to that stupid head of yours? He then grabs her by the face and starts to hurt her. Burcol tried standing up again but failed. Our fallen angel's friend said that I'm not supposed to hurt you, but I don't give a shit about that now. He then start to grab her face even harder, meaning that he was hurting her more. He then threw her up against the wall. She was pinned against the wall with Fried sticking his sword in the wall, causing Asia not to move her hands. Do you know what happens to bad girls that don't listen? He then started to grab her breast, and Asia was crying for help. Asia, please don't hurt me, she said while still crying. Burcol's blood was now boiling. Burcol, enough. Fried looked over to Burcol, who was now on his feet, trying to keep his balance. He had his head down with wide aura surrounding him, confusing Fried. If you ever try to hurt her, I'll. He then looked up to Fried, making eye contact with him. Fried saw his eyes starting to change to teal green color. Never forgive you. Burcol then turned Super Saiyan, freaking out both Asia and Fried. Asia, be Burcol, she said in her thoughts. Fried then pulls his sword out of the wall, making Asia fall to the ground. Fried, well, think you can take me down? Then come over here and show. Burcol didn't hesitate. He went full speed at Fried and kicked him in the gut, sending him through a wall. Burcol just stood there, waiting for Fried to get back up. He got back up and his face explains it all, he was angry. Take this, you low-life piece of shit. He then started to shoot his pistol at him. Burcol just stood there, not moving a muscle. As the bullets were coming at him, Burcol brought up his hand, catching all the bullets going towards him. Fried was shocked at what he saw. Burcol opened his hand, letting all the bullets hit the ground. He charged at him again, exchanging punches and kicks towards Fried's body. Burcol sent one powerful punch towards his stomach, making him spit up blood. He fell to his knees holding on to his stomach. Burcol was just standing there looking down at Fried. He then turns around to face Asia. He started going towards her to see if she is alright. Then all of a sudden I'm not going to let you get away that easily. He then fires his gun at Burcol. He heard the shot go off and quickly turns around to dodge it, but a red light came in front of him and Kiba came through it and dodged the bullet with his sword. Kiba, hey Burcol, looks like we got here right on time. He said while he was in his battle stance, looking back at him. Burcol then notices someone else coming out of that red light. It was a Keno. The Keno, oh my, this is gross. Talk about a nasty mess. Burcol was going to say something, but he saw another person coming out of that light and it was Kaneko. Fried, hell yeah, now we got ourselves a good old-fashioned gangbang. He said while getting back up to his feet. Kiba, Akeno and Kaneko stood by my side. Kiba, you're done here. Sorry to disturb you but he's with us. After Kiba said that, Fried looked at me with shock. Fried, a human working with bucking devils, he said as he had a freaked out face. Burcol was disgusted by the words that he was saying. Kiba went to speak up. Kiba, for a priest, that's quite a mouth you got there. He said as he was holding his sword out. Fried, what are you, the impiety police? Get off your high horse douchebag, hunting your kind is my only concern. So stop preaching and let's get on with it. Then Burcol hears Akeno speak up. Akeno, my, this guy certainly is piece of work. She said while smirking. Fried, and you my dear are sure hot piece of ass. The priest then started to hug himself weirdly. Oh, those eyes are killing me. There's nothing I lust after more than a hexy devil bitch. Then Burcol heard a voice come out of the red light. Riaz, if you want it, come and get some. He then saw dangerous destructive magic come out of that red light, hitting Fried and making him go flying to the wall. Riaz stepped out of that teleportation circle. Burcol, everyone, what are you even all doing here? Riaz looked back at Burcol. Riaz, we noticed that power that you were releasing, so we got here as soon as we can. She then starts to approach Burcol. All of a sudden, she puts hand on his cheek. Look at you, you are all banged up. Burcol tried not blush at her words, but ended up blushing anyway. Burcol looked over at Asia and he notices that she is getting kicked by Fried. He then started gritting his teeth and clenching his fists. Fried, you were so supposed to make the barrier, damn it. Burcol was getting angrier and angrier by the second until his yellow aura exploded, pushing Riaz and the others back. Fried noticed the power that Burcol was releasing and he was shocked. What kind of bucking energy is that? Burcol, get away from her. He then charged at Fried at full speed and started throwing punches and kicks towards Fried. Riaz and the other were astonished by the amount of power that Burcol. Kiba's power keeps growing and growing, incredible. Kiba said in his thoughts as he was standing next the others, his power wasn't like this when he was at the orc building the other day. Burcol picked up Fried by the neck as Fried was beaten to a bloody pulp. Burcol and Super Saiyan spoke up. Burcol, you're not even worth killing. He then throws him onto the ground, not moving. He then dropped out of his Super Saiyan form. As he did that, he started to sense some energies coming this way. He turned around to face the other. Something's coming towards us. Kaneko already knew what that energy was. Kaneko, fallen angels. As soon as she said that, Riaz warned Akeno to start up teleportation to get them out of there. She then turns to Burcol. Riaz, Burcol, how are you feeling? Burcol just gave her the thumbs up that he is okay. Since you're not part of my peerage, you're gonna have to get out of here as fast as possible. Cause you can't travel with us since you're not a devil. Burcol, okay. I'll see you all back at the club. They all nodded and left the house. He turns around and goes towards Asia, who was still on the floor. He lifts her up on the floor and leave the house as fast as possible. Burcol looked down at Asia. Are you okay, Asia? He said, trying to comfort her. She looks up at Burcol. Asia, why yes, I am fine thank you, Burcol. She said. She gave Burcol that sweet innocent smile. Burcol smiled back at her. Burcol, hey, no problem. Then his face changed. Asia, can I tell you something? She nodded at Burcol. Why were you at that house in the first place? He said as he was concerned about her. Her face turned into sadness. Burcol noticed her reaction and he decided to drop it. I'm sorry, Asia, we don't have to talk about if you don't want to. They got to a nearby park and he gently put her down onto the ground. They look at each other in the eyes. So you want me to leave you here? He asked. Asia, yeah, I'll be fine. She said while smiling. Burcol did the same back. Burcol, I'll see you soon, Asia, okay? She nodded and they both say their goodbyes. Burcol got to the park exit and was looking around to see if no one was around. As there was no one, he instant transmission to the others. Orc building. Riaz and the others were doing their usual things until Burcol appeared in the room using instant transmission, scaring everyone. Riaz started to approach Burcol. "Riaz, welcome back," she said as she gave Burcol a smile. He did the same back. "I'm guessing you got back okay?" He nodded his head at Riaz. She then noticed Burcol starting to wobble a little bit. "Burcol, are you okay?" Burcol, "Yeah Riaz, I'm fine." Burcol wasn't fine because he passed out in the middle of the floor. Everyone in the room were worried and went up to him. "Kaneko, he's lost too much blood, we need to heal him fast," Kaneko said to everyone. Riaz then looked at her. "Riaz, don't worry, he'll live." She then started to smirk. Time skip. The next day, Burcol was sleeping and he was slowly starting to wake up and he found himself in some kind of room. He was looking around this room until he felt something move under the sheets. Burcol was confused about this, so he started to sense the energy, and it was Riaz. He was confused as to why she was sleeping with him, so he lifted up the covers to see an unexpected sight. Riaz was naked in bed with Burcol, and he only started to realize that he was naked as well. His face went red as her hair until Burcol fell off the bed and started to back up to find his clothes. He found them near a dresser. He quickly went to the dresser to pop on his clothes. As he did that, Riaz woke up. "Riaz, good morning Burcol," she said, just sitting there. Burcol went to turn around but forgot that she was naked. He was standing there with his face still red. "What's wrong?" "Burcol, you are Riaz, can I ask you something?" he said, still with his back turned. "Riaz, go on." "Burcol, why are you naked and why was I naked?" he said as he was shouting in the room. Riaz giggled at his reaction. "Riaz, well, I can't sleep unless I'm naked and I had to sleep with you in order to heal you." She then giggled a little bit more. Burcol's face was still red until he went to speak up. "Burcol, thanks I guess." Riaz then slowly started to get out of bed and put on some clothes. After she was done covering her private parts, she went behind Burcol. "You can look now." Burcol turned around to see Riaz standing in front of her. Burcol and Riaz were just making eye contact for a second until they heard a knock on the door. They stopped looking at each other and look at the door to see who it is. It was Akeno walking through the doors. When she walked through that door, she saw Riaz and Burcol just standing there. "Akeno, oh my president, making moves on Burcol already? Haha." She then started to giggle a little. Burcol and Riaz blushed hard. Riaz went to speak up. "Riaz, I don't know what you're talking about," she said to Akeno, who just stood there giggling. Burcol's face was getting redder and redder until he decided to speak up. "Burcol, I'm going to head out now, so Saya," he said as he was walking out of the bedroom. Streets. Burcol was walking through the streets on a sunny morning and was thinking to the situation where he woke up next to Riaz naked. He was in deep thought until he bumped into someone, making him get out of thought. "Burcol, I'm so sorry about that, are you okay?" He didn't get to finish his sentence cause he saw Asia. Asia, oh hello Burcol, it's so nice to meet you out here again," she said as she was giving off her innocent smile. "Burcol, what are you doing out here?" he said to her. She looks away from Burcol and quickly looks at him again. "Asia, oh I thought that today was such a beautiful day to walk, so I decided to take one." This gets Burcol an idea. "Burcol, hey, what do you say that me and you hang out for today?" he said as he was smiling at Asia. This causes Asia to smile at him as well. "Asia, sure, I'd love to Burcol." Then the two started walking together to find something fun. Time skip. I think you've all seen the bit where Issei takes Asia out from season 1. It's the same, so I'm going to skip it. Burcol and Asia were at a vending machine cause Burcol was thirsty and wanted a drink. He got water out of the vending machine. "Asia, I don't remember having this much fun in a long time, thank you Burcol for today," she said to Burcol as he was still waiting for his water from the vending machine. Burcol, hey, no problem, and besides we're friends, ain't we? She just smiled at Burcol. Then Burcol hears something drop from the vending machine. It was his water. Finally he picked it up and took a sip out of it until Asia spoke up. "Asia, mind if I ask you something?" He turns to look at her. "Last night, when you were fight that priest, your hair color changed into blonde." Burcol starts to remember that fight he had with Fried when he turned Super Saiyan. "Tell me, what was that?" she said with a worried look. Burcol, well, I can explain, but probably not here with all these people around. Let's go somewhere private and talk. She nodded and the two of them went somewhere private to talk. Park. Them two were sitting on a bench and Burcol was explaining to Asia that he wasn't a human and told that he is part of a warrior race called Saiyans. He also went on to explain to her is that he was sent of his planet very young because his planet was destroyed by some massive blast. Asia was shocked about this and was left speechless. "Asia, wow, so you never met your parents?" He shook his head at Asia. "I'm so sorry to hear about your parents." Burcol just gave her a soft smile. "Burcol, it's alright." Then Asia went to speak up again. "Asia, and how did your adoptive parents find you?" "Burcol, they found me in a space pod just outside the city and they were pretty surprised of what they found of me." She was confused to what he was talking about. He then started to unwrap his tail around his waist. Asia was shocked that Burcol had a tail. She couldn't stop staring at his tail. He begun to laugh a little by her reaction. There was a short silence until he heard Asia sigh. Asia, when I was a baby, I was abandoned by my real parents. This causes Burcol to look at Asia. They left me in front of a church in a small town in Europe. I was told as they found me and I couldn't stop crying. He becomes saddened by this. Asia's parents abandoning her. The sweet nuns there took me in. One day when I was about 8, a sad little puppy that was hurt real bad found its way into the church where I lived. I prayed as hard as I could that God would spare him, and when I did, a miracle happened. Burcol starts to turn happy about that part. She saved the puppy. Because of my power, I was immediately taken to a larger church. Men and women all around the world would visit if they were sick or injured, and I was told to heal all of them. The idea that I hold this power to help other people made me so happy. She then began to smile. Burcol remembered the other day where the kid who hurt his leg and Asia used that power to heal him. Then he notices Asia starting to flown. But then one day, I came across someone who was fallen and was in bad shape. I was able to heal him, but he wasn't a man, it was devil. This surprised Burcol. They said anyone who had that kind of power was a hieratic and I no choice to run away. After Asia explaining her life, Burcol was devastated by this. Burcol, that's awful, I'm sorry to hear that. He said to her. And probably after when you took off, that's when you decided to join the fallen angels, I guess. She nodded her head at him. She spoke up as well. Asia, but I will never forget of who I am. She said she was giving off a sad smile. I say my prayers and try my best to live a good life. They're awful, they do such horrible and evil things in all of the name of God. She then had her head down and Burcol was looking at her with sadness. The suffering has to be a test of my faith, and if I can overcome these trials, someday I know my hopes and dreams will come true. That's what I believe in anyway. Burcol decided to answer her about her dreams. Burcol, then what are your dreams, Asia? She then started to show her smile a little. Asia, to make lots of lifelong friends and to get to know them well and do cool things. To be able to have fun together and care for each other. Burcol just stared at Asia. It's kind of silly, but honestly. She then looked at Burcol with a smile. I'd be happy to have any friends. When she said that, Burcol just smiled at her. He was going to say something to her, but he started to sense some evil energy coming from in front of them. Well, isn't this so touching? They both hear the voice coming from in front of them. They both turn their heads to see a fallen angel standing a distance away from them. Asia looks scared and Burcol notices her reaction. Burcol was wondering who she was until Asia spoke up. Asia, Lady Rainer. Burcol looked at Asia confused until he remembered something, fighting that other fallen angel the day after Issei's death. Flashback at the park. On Issei, well, we told our beloved Rainer to disguise as a cute girl to go out with your brother and well, you can what happened next. End of flashback. Burcol was now standing there with an angry face as he has now finally found the person who was responsible for his brother's death. He started to clench his fists. Burcol, Rainer. Chapter 8 Revenge. Burcol, Rainer. Burcol was staring at Rainer with his fists clenched and gritting his teeth. Asia notices Burcol getting angry and she went to ask him. Asia, Burcol, do you know her? Not looking back to Asia, he continued to stare down Rainer and answer Asia's question. Burcol, yeah, I do. It's because she killed my brother. After Burcol said that, Asia came shocked and covered her face in disbelief. Rainer notices him staring at her. And decides to do an evil smirk. Rainer, so you must be that Dumbus's big brother. Burcol, wasn't it? Although, we did meet once when your brother introduced you to Yuma. But that wasn't for very long. She said while she continued to give Burcol an evil smirk. And you also killed Kalawiner as well, did you? Asia looked at Burcol with a shocked face, thinking what Rainer was saying was true. Burcol, I don't care about all that now, he says, shouting at Rainer who was hovering above the water fountain. And since you're here now, I'm going to enjoy breaking every last bone in your body, Rainer, until you can't move anymore. After when he says that, he is surrounded with white aura and he was powering up. Leaving Rainer shocked by how much power Burcol is releasing. Rainer, how is a pure mortal have this kind of power, she says in her thoughts, while Asia was astonished by Burcol. Asia, Burcol, please be careful. She said in her thoughts as she had her hands together while looking at Burcol. Burcol, you're gonna feel the power of a Saiyan. But he get hit by a spear as he was powering up. He fell to his knees and was holding onto his stomach. Asia, Burcol, she then rushed over to him while dropping the plush animal that Burcol got for her earlier. She bent down to Burcol. Hold still. She says while she was placing her hands on his stomach. He was confused by this. Burcol, what are you doing? He says while he was still in pain. Then Burcol started to feel the pain coming from his stomach going away. Wow, it's like that stab wound was never there at all. Her power is amazing. He said in his thoughts. He looked over to Rainer and he notices her getting mad. Once Asia fully healed Burcol, he slowly started to stand up back on his feet. The both of them start to hear Rainer laugh. Rainer hahaha, now Asia. Be a good little girl and come with me. Your healing power is far more rare and infinitely more valuable to our kind than him. Burcol starts to get angry and he notices Asia hiding her hands behind her back. Asia, I knew it. You're only interested in me because of my power. Burcol then notices Rainer summoning another spear. Rainer, how about we sweeten the deal? Come with me and I'll make sure that your friend there doesn't get hurt, but if you decline, I'll end his life right here and right now. Asia looked scared, she didn't know what to do. She was stuck in a bad situation. She didn't want it to go with her, but she'll kill Burcol if she refused. Until Burcol spoke up again. Burcol, she's not going with you. Rainer. Both Asia and Rainer noticed this. There is no way that I'm handing Asia over to you, you fallen angel bastard. After when he said that really made her angry. Asia, Burcol, please let me go with her. So that I know that you're safe. She said to Burcol, but he refused to say no. Burcol, if I can't protect you Asia, then what good of a friend am I? This made Asia shocked. Then they both see Rainer take off to the sky and she threw the spear at Asia. Burcol notices this. Asia, he then got in front of her and took the hit for her, causing a big explosion. As the smoke was starting to clear, Burcol was holding on to Asia with no shirt on him and blood coming out of his back. He was wobbling a little bit until he collapsed onto the ground. He couldn't even move his body due to how much damage he took from that blast. Rainer landed right next to Asia and had another spear ready. She pointed it at Burcol, ready to end him. Rainer, last chance Asia, come with me now or I'll end his pathetic life. She said as she was still pointing the spear at Burcol. Asia looked down with a sad face. Asia, oh okay, I'll go with you. Rainer then gets rid of the spear and goes towards Asia. Burcol and then no Asia, don't do it. But Asia turned around to face Burcol who was still on the ground, smiled at him. Asia, goodbye my friend. I'll miss you so much. She said as she had tears coming out of her eyes. Burcol tried standing back up but fell down. Rainer was now hugging Asia with her fallen angel wings. She then turned to face Burcol with a cocky smirk. Rainer, I'll see you very soon Burcol. Bye bye. After when she said that, they both disappeared leaving Burcol on the ground badly damaged. He slowly leaned onto one knee and punched the ground in anger, leaving a small punch mark in the ground. Burcol, d damn it why couldn't I save her, he said as he slowly started to gain tears in his eyes. Then he saw a familiar red logo appeared in front of him and he saw Rias, Akeno, Kaneko and Kiba. They all saw Burcol badly hurt. Everyone Burcol, they all approached him and Kiba came to his side and lent him his help. Kiba, I got you Burcol. He said while smiling to him, but Burcol didn't smile back. He was still angry that he couldn't save Asia. Rias spoke up. Rias, Burcol, what happened to you? She said while she had a worried look on her. He didn't respond back to her except saying one word. Burcol, Azia. He said while leaning on Kiba's shoulder. I couldn't save her. He now had his face down, gritting his teeth. Rias was confused to who he was referring to. She was going to say something else to him, but he passed out onto Kiba's shoulder. Kiba, we gotta heal him. Look how badly hurt he looks, President. She nodded at Kiba and looked at Akeno. Rias, Akeno, start up a teleportation back at the club. She nodded and started to make another teleportation. Kiba was still holding on to Burcol as he was passed out still. Kiba heard him say something underneath his breath. Burcol, I'm sorry. Kiba looked at the passed out Burcol and just smiled at him. Kiba, you did your best Burcol, don't beat yourself up for it. He said in his thoughts. After that, they teleported back to the orc building. Burcol was in some black void and he was confused by this. He then started to shout to see if anyone was here. Burcol, hello? Is anyone here? He got nothing. He then started walking around until he could find something or someone. After for a few minutes of walking around, he was starting to get annoyed because of how long this walk was. Until he heard something behind him. He turned around and he saw he was in some park with raining hitting him. He was so confused cause he went to turn back around to see if that black void was still there, but it wasn't. He was super confused now, scratching his head. He then started to walk around the park with the rain hitting him. Another few minutes go by and he was starting to see something on the ground near the water fountain. He decided to approach it to see what it is. As he got up to the body laying down, he bent down to his knees and turned the body to its backside. As he turned it around, he was now staring at Issei. What is this, some kind of dream I'm in? Then, Issei's body was starting to disappear and this got Burcol confused. He was going to say something until he saw his own shadow. He looked up to see a big blast coming towards him and he also saw the same black figure he saw in his dream a couple of nights ago. He was trying to push the blast back but it was much stronger than he was. It ended up hitting up Burcol. Orc building. Burcol woke up from the dream he had and he was breathing very fast. He then started to look around the room to see where he was, and he was in a room where he waked up next to Ria's this morning. He was wondering how he even got back here. Burcol W, what was that dream that I just had? With Issei and that. He said as he was shaking his head. He also remembered that black figure in that dream as well. And that weird person in my dream again. Who was that? He then started to hear the door open. He looked up towards the door and he sees Riaz and Akeno walk in. Riaz, Burcol, you're awake, how are you feeling? She said as she was smiling at Burcol. He just gave her the thumbs up. Akeno went to speak up. Akeno, that was quite the thrashing that you took at the park. She said to him. Burcol looked confused as to what she was even talking about. Burcol, what are you talking? Until it hit him, he was trying to protect Asia at the park today from the fallen angel Rainer today. He then quickly got out of bed and went to find his clothes that he was wearing today. Both girls saw him wearing nothing. They both blushed at his body, but Burcol didn't care about that. All he cared about was saving Asia. Riaz went to speak up. Riaz, what are you doing? Burcol didn't pay attention, he continued to put his clothes on. This annoyed her a little bit. She decided to say his name a little bit more harshly this time. Burcol, who was finished changing into his clothes, turned around to face Riaz. Burcol, what Riaz? He said as he was glaring at her straight in the eyes. Riaz, what are you doing? She responded back to him. Burcol, what does it look like I'm doing? I'm going to save Asia from that fallen angel bastard. He said to both of the girls. Both of them looked confused to what girl he was referring to until they remembered seeing a nun girl at the house 2 days ago. Now if you excuse me, I've got to save someone. He said as he was walking out of the room. As he walked past the two of them, Riaz grabbed onto his hand. Burcol looked at her confused. What are you doing, Riaz? He said to her. Riaz, you can't do that, Burcol. Besides, you're a part of the orc club, remember? She said to Burcol. Burcol turned his whole body around to face Riaz and he gave her a glare that Riaz has not seen before. Burcol, let go off me, Riaz, and get out of my way. He said harshly to her, which actually sent shivers down her spine a little bit. Riaz had never seen Burcol like this before. I'm going to save Asia no matter what, so let go of me, Riaz. Riaz, no, Burcol. She said as she was still holding onto Burcol's hand. Burcol ripped her hand of his wrist and started to walk out of the building. He made it to a dark room where he first met Riaz and he saw Kiba and Kaneko sitting down on the couch while he was walking out of the building. Riaz and Akeno walked in and they see him starting to walk out of the building. Burcol, stop. He stopped walking and turned around to face the others. Burcol, why Riaz? He said as he had an angry face on him now. Riaz, like I said before, Burcol, you're a part of the orc. Which means you can't just go and save. She didn't get to save her because Burcol cut her off. Burcol, then I quit the orc club. Then after he said that, everyone went into total shock that he even said that. Because I'm not going to watch someone die, not again. He then started to remember how he couldn't save Issei. Then he went back into reality. So whatever you do, don't try and follow me. He said as he walked out of the building. This got every one of the devils sad, including Riaz. Riaz, Burcol. She said in her thoughts. Akeno came up behind her and tapped her on the shoulder. Akeno, are you okay, Riaz? She turned around to face her best friend. She looked at her with a sad look on her face. Riaz, yeah, I'll be fine, Akeno. She said to Akeno. She then turned to Kiba and Kaneko. I want you two to follow Burcol so he doesn't try and get himself killed. They both nod at Riaz and they both stand up, heading out of the building. Riaz was going to walk away as well, but Akeno called out to her. Akeno, also I forgot to tell you earlier that there have been reports near a church. This got Riaz's attention. Riaz, do you know what the report is, Akeno? She nodded her head at her. Akeno, probably fallen angels. Riaz, well then, let's pay a visit to this fallen angels. Akeno nodded at her and the both of them left the building to go to these fallen angels. Streets. Burcol was flying through the air, trying to sense Asia's energy. He couldn't seem to find it until he remembered something that Asia told him. Flashback. Asia, if you're ever around the area, come visit me at the church if you like. Cause that's where I'll be. End of flashback. After he remembered those words from Asia, he looked at the only church they have in Kuo. Burcol, don't worry Asia, I'm coming. He then engulfed himself in wide aura and flew off towards the church. It took him a few minutes to get to the church, but he finally made it. He was standing outside the church doors and was trying to sense if there was anyone inside, and there was. It's that guy I met at the house yesterday. What was his name again? Ah, now I know now, it was Fried. He said as he kicked the doors down. He walked in the church and saw that it was abandoned inside. He was taking a look around inside until he heard gunfire and he moved out of the way. Burcol looked around to see where that bullet came from and he sees Fried standing on top of a statue. He just gave him an angry glare. Fried. Oh, if it isn't the little pussy-ass human. I was wondering when you would get here. He said as he was starting to lick his sword weirdly. Which actually creeped out Burcol a little bit. He didn't have time to stand around. He had to try and find Asia and see where they were keeping her. Burcol, I don't have time to mess around with you. Where are you keeping Asia, Fried? He said as he stand a good distance away from him. Fried just continued to give him that weird smile. Fried, oh, you mean that little nun bitch. Burcol blood was boiling after he said that. All you have to do is go down to the basement, she's right beneath the altar we're currently standing on. Burcol was thinking it was downstairs. But first you will have go through me. Burcol got into his usual fighting pose until he heard a voice behind him and it sounded similar. Kiba, he won't be fighting you. Burcol turned around to see Kiba and Kaneko standing there. You'll be fighting me. Burcol gave them an angry glare. Burcol, what are you two doing here? And I told all of you not to follow me. He said as he continued to glare at both of them. Kiba didn't even get to talk because Fried started talking over him. Fried, well, if it isn't the disgusting devils that were at the house. He said to both Kiba and Kaneko who behind Burcol. Kiba, hey Burcol. This got his attention. You mind if can take a shot at this him? They both stared at each other for at least for a second until Burcol just sighed. Burcol, fine, you can take him on, but don't blame me if you get killed. He said to him. Kiba just smirked at him. He walked past Burcol and was standing in front of Fried now. Fried, oh, so you're going to be my opponent now. Very well, devil, time to die. He then started shooting his gun at Kiba, dodged them with his speed. And he also noticed that Kiba summoned a sword. Burcol was sensing the power from that sword, was a little bit surprised by the power it was giving out. Burcol, the power I'm sensing from Kiba's sword is giving out a little bit of energy. He said in his thoughts. He continued to watch the fight going on with Kiba and Fried. Fried, come on, is that all you got? Show me something interesting, he said as they continued to slash their swords at each other. They both slashed at each other one more time and their swords were pushing against each other. Kiba, you're quick. He said as he was smirking at Fried. He did the same back. Fried, you're not so bad yourself. Of course that only makes me want to kill you even more. He then pointed the gun at Kiba and he was through off guard but was able to dodge it just before the bullet hit him. He then jumped back a little to get some distance from Fried. Kiba, alright, if you want to get serious about this, I can too. All of a sudden, Kiba's sword started to turn black and it confused Burcol a little bit. He went to sense the energy again and this time, the energy was giving off bad power. Burcol, Kiba's sword and energy just changed and the energy I'm sensing from the sword now is giving off bad vibes. I might jump in a second. He said in his thoughts as he was checking out Kiba's new sword. Fried rushed to Kiba and went to swing at him with his sword and it makes contact with Kiba's sword. As it made contact, the sword that Kiba was using started to surround Fried's sword. Fried, hey, what the hell is this, he said as he was glaring Kiba with an angry face now. Kiba just smiled at him. Kiba, the holy eraser. It's a sword of darkness that devours light. Fried was even more furious now. Fried, please, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Burcol was amazed by Kiba and how a sword can just get rid of light. Kiba looked at Burcol, giving him the go-ahead signal. Burcol nodded and started to rush Fried. Fried notices this and he starts to shoot his gun at Burcol. He dodged the bullets with his speed and was closing in on him. Fried's only words were, yep, I'm bucked. Burcol then brought his fist all the way back and punched him skewer in the face, sending flying through the statue and outside. Fried was knocked out outside, laying on the cold ground. Burcol, Kiba and Kaneko were all standing in the church. He turned around to face the both of them and asked them question that didn't get answer earlier. Burcol, you guys didn't answer my question. Why are you two here? He said to both of them. Kiba just walked up to him, put his hand on his shoulder. Riaz sent us here to help you out because she doesn't want to see you getting hurt again. Burcol was kinda shocked at that Riaz sent the two of them here to help him out. Just before, Riaz was asking Burcol not to go because he was a part of the orc. But now, she's helping him. Burcol just smiled a little bit. Burcol, well thanks, I guess. He said as he was still unsure about it. Kiba just smiled at him. Kiba, well hey, you and I are buddies, right? Then his face turned into a cold look. Besides, fallen angels ain't exactly my favorite things in the world. Burcol just looked at him until he turned around to go the altar. As he was going to kick it, he said something to Kiba. Burcol, you're not the only one, Kiba. Then he kicks it in and he sees it downstairs, leading to probably Asia. Come on, we ain't got much time left. He said to both of them as he was running down the stairs. As the other were following him, Burcol started to sense a lot of fallen angel energy. There's a lot of fallen angels down here. Hold on Asia, I'm coming. As Burcol, Kiba and Kaneko all reached the bottom of the stairs, they can see they were in a large room with people wearing black hoodies. Burcol looked up and he can see a cross. And on that cross was Asia. Asia, he screamed out her name. Asia B. Burcol, you made it. She said with a weak smile. Burcol was going to say something to her but was cut off by another voice. Rainer, well, looks like you made it and I see you also brought devils as backup as well. But it doesn't matter, you're already too late Burcol because I'm already taking something that belongs to me now then Burcol, Kiba and Kaneko start to notice the cross start to grow. Then they start to hear Asia scream in pain. He was confused until he started sense her life energy going away. Burcol Rainer, stop what are you doing to her he said to Rainer who was standing next to the cross. Then he hears Kiba speak up. Kiba that's it they're after her sacred gear. Burcol looked at Kiba with an confused face. He didn't know what these sacred gears were, but he didn't have time for that, he had to get Asia down from that cross before it takes up all her life energy and her scared gear. Burcol I'm coming Asia he was going to rush towards the cross to get to her, but was pulled back by Kiba as he saw a spear coming towards them. The spear landed right in front of them and exploded, causing Burcol and Kiba to get sent flying back into the wall. Rainer don't even think about saving Asia, Burcol. Besides, it's too late. It's mine now. She then turned around to face Asia who was still screaming in pain. After a few seconds, Asia stopped screaming and rings started to come out of her body. Burcol stood there in disbelief. He sensed Asia's energy and was starting to fade away. Then he notices the rings started to land on Rainer. Twilight healing, at last it's in my hands she said as she had the rings in her hands. Yes, I've been lusting after this power for years. Then she started to put the rings in her body, making the whole area get brighter. As the light died down, Burcol, Kiba and Kaneko could see Rainer in green aura. Ahahaha. I'll be beloved I'll be the most powerful fallen angel there is all those pricks who screwed me over are going to regret it. Burcol had enough of Rainer talking and started to rush the both of them. Burcol screw you as he was running towards both Asia and Rainer, the people started rushing Burcol. They didn't wanted him to go near Rainer. Burcol literally had no time to mess around with these thugs. Out of my way he then released some of his power, sending a shock wave towards the people and knocking them all over. He was now running up the stairs, closing in on Asia and Rainer. As he got up top of the stairs, he was now looking at Asia. He was slowly walking up to her as she was still. No. He said as he got up right in front of her. He then hears Rainer speak up. Rainer you deserve a reward for making it this far. She then clicked her fingers and the chains around Asia started to become loose. Asia falls, but Burcol was able to catch her. Burcol Asia, it's me. Are you okay? He said to her, seeing if she is still alive or not. He heard a small gasp from her and she was slowly started to open her eyes. Asia B. Burcol, you came. She said while letting out a small smile. Burcol then hears Rainer speak up again. Rainer go ahead and take the girl. I got what I needed. She said as she was slowly walking away. Burcol started to grit his teeth while he was still holding on to Asia. He called out to Rainer. Burcol Rainer this gets her attention. She turns around while giving Burcol an evil smirk. Put her sacred gear back in her right now he said as his blood was boiling. Rainer so tough sorry. I had to betray my most of the fallen angels to get that little gem. Then she started to summon a spear. Unfortunately for you. You're about to become like Asia right there and your dumbus of a brother, Issei. After she said those words. Burcol snapped and he was breathing heavy while gritting his teeth. Well Burcol, it was nice knowing you for a little bit, but it's time for you to die aahhh she said as she went to finish off Burcol who was still on his knees, holding Asia. As it was going to hit him, Burcol grabbed the tip of the spear while he was holding onto Asia with the other arm. He was holding onto it as he went Super Saiyan. Rainer was astonished by the energy that Burcol had and she had never seen him in this form before. Burcol slowly turned his head all the way around to face Rainer and Burcol was staring at her with his green teal eyes which actually scared Rainer. She went to pull her spear back to her, but it wouldn't even move. Burcol brought the spear towards him, bring Rainer as well and headbutting her towards the wall. Burcol I have to get her out of here. She's running out of time. He then makes a break for it to get Asia to a more safer place. He didn't notice that Kiba and Kaneko were fighting off the black hooded people. Kiba Kaneko. He said as he was making a break for it. He then hears Kiba shout out to him. Kiba Burcol, get out of here me and Kaneko can hold them off while you take her to a safe place he said as he was dodging each attack from the hooded figure. Burcol are you too sure he said as he stopped running and he was looking at both of them. He didn't wanted to leave them because if he did, they would accidentally get killed and Burcol would blame himself. Kiba looked at Burcol while his sword is pushing another sword back. Kiba yes, I'm sure me and Kaneko will be fine now go he said shouting out to Burcol one more time. Burcol oh okay, you two better not die on me he said, saying those last words while running back upstairs to the church. Kiba and Kaneko smiled at Burcol who wasn't looking back, he just kept running. Once Burcol made back up top of the church with Asia still in his hands, he started to hear breathe heavy and this caused Burcol to freak out a little. He sat her down on some chairs as her dress was left half hanging out, leaving her left breast out. Hang in there, Asia. We'll be out of here soon just hang in there. He then started to grab Asia's hand. Asia I know it wasn't a very wrong time, but I'm so blessed to made a friend like you. she said as she was smiling weakly. Burcol started to gain tears in his eyes. Burcol, stop, it isn't over yet. We're going to be friends for a lot longer than this, you hear me? She didn't say another word. She just continued to look at Burcol as he was gaining more tears. When you feel better, I promise that we will do fun things together. You can't give up. Then, tears started going down Burcol's face as he couldn't hold the tears in any longer. You still have to meet my friends as well, he said as he was still crying, tears still going down his face. Asia smiled weakly again. Asia, I wish it could be different, it would have been great to grow up in this country going to school. Burcol held her hand tighter than before. Burcol, you still can. And school would be a lot more fun with you there. He closed his eyes as he said that last part. He then felt something touch his cheek. He opened his eyes to see Asia touching Burcol's face. Asia, I never wanted to make you cry. Oh, Burcol, I'm sorry, goodbye. She said to him. Burcol went to sense her energy and it was gone. The last of life energy disappeared. Burcol's eyes went wide, so did his mouth. He then started to hug her body as tears were slowly going down his body. Burcol, and no, I let it happen again, I'm so sorry. He said as he was hugging her body tightly now. Why can't I save anyone? Outside of the church, Riaz and Akeno were holding off two fallen angels near the church. One was the fallen angel that attacked Burcol a few days ago and another one. This one had blonde hair and blue eyes and she was wearing a maiden outfit. Akeno, who was wearing something different from her school uniform, was shielding herself and Riaz from light spears. The spear ended up exploding, making the shield break and pushing Akeno back a little. They then hear Donaseek speak. Donaseek, it doesn't matter what that Moran's powers are. He doesn't stand a chance against Lady Raynor, he said as he was summoning another spear. Then they both hear the other fallen angel start to laugh. He's just going to end up like his brother, besides he's a joke. Then she summoned a spear and the both of them threw the spear at Riaz, who was just standing there with angry look on her face. Akeno, watch out, Riaz didn't listen, she just stood there waiting for the spears to approach her. As they go close to her, red aura started to surround her, making the spears get deflected. The two fallen angels were shocked. Donaseek, she deflected it, he said as he was looking at a now angry Riaz Gremory. Riaz, he's not a joke, no one makes fun of my friend, she said as she was still releasing more power, making the fallen angels scared of their lives. Akeno, look what you did now. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to taunt her like that. She said as she was giving a smirk. Then Riaz started to make dangerous magic out of her hands and she fired it at the two fallen angels. Whoopsie on you. Then the magic hit the angels and they were killed almost instantly. After all of that, Riaz looks over to Akeno. Riaz, let's head over to the church. She nodded at Riaz and the two of them started heading their way inside the church. Burcol, who was still in his Super Saiyan form, was still holding on to Asia's body with tears still rolling down his body. But he started to hear someone else in the room. Raynor, now this is a sight to see. Burcol looked to who was talking and he can see it was Raynor. I never expected you to care so much for that girl even after meeting her for a few days. She said as she was sitting on the opposite side of the seats. Burcol looked at her with an angry glare with his tears still going down his face. Raynor just laughed at the sight. Burcol put Asia's body back down onto the seat and slowly started to stand back up to his feet. She notices the Saiyan coming towards her. Oh, you still wanna have a go, huh? Very well then. She then summons a spear. Then you can die with your brother and that nun slut. She then went to attack him with the spear, but Burcol caught the spear with his hand again. Burcol then released a huge amount of power into him, causing a huge golden aura to surround him. Raynor tried pulling the spear back to her, but Burcol wasn't letting go. Let go, oh. She didn't get to finish her sentence cause she was headbutted straight in the face, making her let go of the spear and stumble back a little. Burcol just stood there with a pissed off face in his Super Saiyan form with golden aura surrounding him. Burcol, you just keep killing innocent people, one after another, he then started to clench his fist. Now I'm truly angry, Raynor. He then rushed at Raynor at full speed, punching her straight in the stomach. She then started to cough up blood and Burcol wasn't done there. He then picked her up and threw her into the church chairs. She slowly started to get back up to her feet and she was looking angry at Burcol now. Raynor, I am impossible, how can someone like you have this much power, she said to Burcol. He didn't answer her question, which kind of annoyed her a little bit. Fine, don't answer me. Then she then went to summon a spear, but before she can even do that, Burcol appeared right behind her. Raynor was shocked of how fast he got behind her. Burcol did a spinning kick on the side of face and was sent back onto the ground. He then started to notice Raynor starting to hear herself, but he wasn't going to let it happen. Burcol grabbed her whole face with his left hand and then started to punch her in the gut multiple times with his right hand. She was coughing up a lot of blood cause of the hard hits that Burcol was doing to her. After a few more hits to her stomach, Burcol threw her to the ground and she wasn't even moving. After a few more seconds, she started moving again and she started to heal herself. Burcol, give it up Rainer, you're no match for me in your state right now, he said as Rainer, who was still on the ground, hearing herself. Now I'm not going to ask again, give back Asia's scared gear now. Rainer and Nevada. Burcol didn't take that as an answer. He slammed her face into the ground, making a small crater. Burcol picked her up by the neck and was staring deep into her eyes. Burcol, now Rainer, she couldn't do nothing because of the damage that Burcol was doing to her. She was healing herself, but she was slowly losing her energy. She was able to get back up onto her feet after taking those blows in the stomach and getting her face smashed into the ground. Rainer, I will not give up this gems, I've worked too hard to get that girl down here and I'm not going to give it to some lowlife scumbag like you. She then summoned 2 spears and threw them both at Burcol. He jumped up into the air and realized that the spears were following him, just like how he met that fallen angel at the park. Burcol was flying inside the church, trying to get away from these spears that were following him. He then decided to charge at Rainer at full speed, catching her off guard. She got punched in the face that it sent her back onto the ground again. She slowly started getting back up and she noticed the spear that she threw at Burcol was coming towards her. I will not die here today, she said as she jumped over the spear. As she was going to land back on the ground, she felt something pierce her through the stomach. It was the second spear that she threw at Burcol and she totally forgot about it. How can I lose, she said as she fell back to the ground with the spear still in her gut. Rainer tried to heal herself, but she couldn't because the spear was still stuck in her and she couldn't even rip it out of her cause, she used too much of her power from today. She then passed out from blood loss. Burcol, I wasn't expecting this to happen, but you deserve it for what you did to Asia. He then started walking towards Rainer's body and was going to get the rings from her. As he got the rings, he senses Riaz and Akeno walking into the church. They both see him in his Super Saiyan form. Riaz, I see you handle her well, she said as she was standing behind Burcol. He didn't turn around to face her. He just kept looking at Rainer's body. I'm taking that you killed her. When she said that, Burcol slowly turned around to face her. He shook his head at Riaz. Burcol, no. She's only passed out from blood lost, he said to her. Riaz was going to say something, but noticed the rings that Burcol was holding in his hand. Riaz, may I take a look at those rings, Burcol? He nodded and he gave her the rings to have a good look at them. She smiled at Burcol. These are beautiful. Who are these? She then noticed Burcol pull a sad face, which got Riaz concerned about him. Burcol, she said to him to get his attention. He notices that he's looking over to the bench and that's when she looked over to see a girl laying down on a bench. She then realizes that is the girl that Burcol was going to save. I think these need to return to their rightful owner. She then gave back the rings to Burcol. He then started to walk towards Asia's body and put the rings back on her. Then Kiba and Kaneko came running up the stairs and they see Burcol, who was on his knees while holding Asia's hand. Burcol, I'm sorry Asia, I couldn't protect you. He then started to gain tears while holding Asia close to him. Kiba and Kaneko looked sad because they never seen him like this before. Then Riaz came up behind Burcol and placed her hand on her shoulder. Riaz, this is not your fault, Burcol. Besides, you tried everything you can to save her, you can't blame yourself for that, she said as she was trying to comfort him. She then went to speak up again. Burcol, do you know the game of chess? This got Burcol to look away from Asia's body and look at Riaz. Burcol, what does this have to do all of this, he said, now getting a little bit angry as Riaz asked him that. Riaz, just answer me. Do you know the game of chess? She said to him again. Burcol was going to shout at her but tried not to lose it. He sighed. Burcol, why yes, but what does this have to do with Asia? He said this in a more calmer voice. Riaz smiled warmly at Burcol. Riaz, in the game of chess, I'm the king. Akeno my queen. Kiba my knight. Kaneko my rook. And there's 2 more pieces. The bishop and my pawns. Burcol was looking slightly confused about all of this. Devils from the aristocracy assign the traits of these pieces to their subordinates. Burcol, traits of the pieces, he said as he was tilting his head to the side. Riaz, we call these our evil pieces. She responded back to Burcol. Burcol, this doesn't answer my question to why it involves Asia. Then he sees Riaz pulls out a chess piece. A chess piece? He said as was slightly confused by this. Riaz, the bishop's position of power is to protect and heal other devils in the household. Perhaps the timing is perfect. We could use a good clergyman. Burcol, what are you saying? He then started to think what she was saying until it finally clicked in his mind. You're going to revive her, ain't you? He said in a surprised voice. Riaz just smiled at the blonde-haired Saiyan. Riaz, yes. Our good sister is about to be born again into the underworld. Burcol then sees everyone setting up some kind of ritual for Asia and she was set in the middle of the logo. Burcol then hears Riaz start to say something. In the name of Riaz Gremory. I call to Asia Argento, hear my command. Return the soul from the shadows of death to the human realm. Rise once more as my devil servant. Rejoice, for you have been giving new life. Wake up as my new healer and clergyman. After when she said that, the bishop piece started to go into her body. Then Burcol started to sense something. It was Asia. Her energy was starting to come back, but it was a little bit different this time. It was like how he sensed those energies when he first went to school. Burcol started to notice Asia's eyes, they were starting to open. She wakes up to see that she was surrounded by people. Burcol, why you're alive, he said as he was starting to gain tears again while smiling. Riaz saw how happy he was and she started to smile. Riaz, I don't make a habit of reviving the decreased, but her power may be useful. She said as she was starting to walk away. Asia B. Burcol. Am I really here? Burcol didn't responded, he ran to her and started to hug her, which caught her by surprise. Burcol, I'm so glad that you're okay. He said as he was still hugging her. No matter what happens, Asia, I will always protect you and everybody else. He said in his thoughts. He then let go of her and picked her up with her feet. Let's go home. He didn't get to finish because he started to hear someone cough. He looked behind him and he saw Rainer starting to wake up. Everybody got into their battle stances, but Burcol told all of them to stand down. They do as they told. Burcol slowly started walking up to Rainer, who was on the ground still with the spear still stuck in her. She was slowly losing blood and her energy life was started to fade away. Once he got to her body, he knelt down onto one knee. It's not fun when you're being in pain, isn't it? He responded harshly at her. Rainer T, this is nothing. I'll just keep healing myself until I kill you. She went to try and heal herself, but it wasn't working because the sacred gear that she stole from Asia wasn't there. Why can't I heal myself? Then she noticed Asia back alive. I am Possible, how are you back alive? Burcol was going to speak up, but Riaz cut him off. Riaz, that would be me. She said as she was walking towards Rainer's body. Rainer looked shocked and scared at what she was looking at. Rainer, why you're Riaz Gremory, she said in a scared voice. She was now standing over her body. Riaz, it's so good to finally meet you at last, Rainer. She said as she was staring her down. Rainer, what did you do with the twilight healing? Riaz just smirked at her. Riaz, I took back the sacred gear and put it back into Asia. After when she said that, she was going to go question how, but Riaz answered that for her. I reincarnated Asia into a devil if you wanted the answer. Rainer was shocked. Rainer, why you won't get away with this once my comrades get here, they will kill you all. Riaz just laughed at this, as she had already dealt with the two fallen angels. What's so funny? She said as she was looking out above her. Riaz, we already took care of them before we arrived here. She said smiling at Rainer. Rainer T, that's imposed. She then started coughing up more blood as she didn't have much time left. Riaz looked over to Burcol with a smile. Riaz, Burcol. This gets his attention. You can decide what to do with her. The choice is yours. Burcol then looked back at Rainer, who was breathing heavy. He then decided to make the choice. Burcol, leave her. He said with an angry face while he was in his Super Saiyan form still. He then decided to walk away until Riaz called out to him. Riaz, are you sure? Burcol? She said as she was calm about the situation. Burcol, she's already dying, so might as well let her bleed out to death. He said as he had his back turned towards everyone else. Riaz looked at everyone, including her new bishop. Riaz, let's go everyone. They all nodded to Riaz and they all started walking out of the church with Burcol. As they were walking, Burcol heard something from Rainer. Rainer P, please, I beg you mercy. She said as she coughing up more blood. Burcol stopped walking and started to get angry again. He started to grit his teeth and clench his fists while his hair was covering his eyes. Save me. Burcol getting more angrier the more she talked. He turned around to face Rainer, who was still holding on to the spear that was still stuck in her gut. Burcol, how can you beg for mercy? He responded to Rainer. How many times did Issei beg you for mercy before you killed him? How many? He said as he was shouting at her. Everyone looked at Burcol with a sad look, especially Asia. Asia B. Burcol. She said in her thoughts. Rainer was struggling to breathe because of her talking. Rainer, please, I beg of you. Burcol didn't know what to do in this situation. Everyone was looking at Burcol, seeing what his next move was going to be. Then all of a sudden, Burcol slowly raised his right hand up and shot something at her. She was surrounded with golden aura and her energy was coming back a little bit. Burcol, I'll give you a little bit of my energy, Rainer. He then dropped out of Super Saiyan and turned his back towards Rainer. Your days of killing people are over. I don't want to see your face ever again. So go hide under a rock like the scared fallen angel you are. He then started walking towards the main entrance. He then gets everyone's attention. Let's go everyone. Riaz was going to say something to Burcol but decided to keep her mouth shut. Everyone started following Burcol outside. Rainer, why you worthless piece of trash? She said underneath her breath. I am the great Rainer. And you're just a worthless mortal who is going to die. She then summoned a spear and threw it towards Burcol. Burcol turned around to see Rainer standing up but also saw the spear going towards him. He couldn't dodge out of the way. The spear scraped his face and everyone looked at him with an worried face. Burcol was also shocked as well. He went to touch his cheek and he felt blood on his hand. He clenched his fist and looked at Rainer with a pissed off face. "Burcol, I warned you, but you didn't listen," he said as he was now clenching both fists now and gritting his teeth. "I gave you one last chance to walk away, Rainer, and you blew it." He then started to power up again. His aura was going yellow while his hair went from black to blonde as well. "You blew it," he then started to put his hands together. Kamehameha. Then, Burcol's Kamehameha was heading towards Rainer. Rainer only had a little bit of energy in her and she couldn't move her body. It made impact with her and they can only hear her scream in pain by that blast. Rainer and after that, there was nothing there. Rainer wasn't to be seen anywhere, meaning Burcol finally dealt with her. Burcol was still in his Kamehameha stance as everybody looked astonished by Burcol's move. Then they see him drop down on his knees on the floor and tears start going down his face again. "Burcol, Issei," he then started crying. Everybody looked saddened by Burcol including Asia. Riaz came up behind him and wrapped her arms around him. She looked back at everyone, giving them the stare off. "Riaz, you can all head back now." Everyone nodded and Akeno started to set up a teleportation. Everyone stepped inside of it and they headed back to the orc building. While they left the site, Riaz continued to hug Burcol from behind. "Shhhh, it's going to be alright, Burcol," she said while trying to comfort him. The two stayed in that position for a while until they all head back home. Time skip. The next day. It was the day after Burcol got rid of Rainer and he was sitting inside the orc building, trying to process everything from last night. "Burcol, I got my revenge for Issei, but I don't feel anything at all," he said as to himself. He started to the doors open to his left. He looked over to Riaz standing there. Riaz just smiled at him. "Riaz, oh Burcol, I didn't expected you to be here so early," she said as she was walking forward toward the other couch. "Burcol, yes, sorry. I wanted time to think, but all the girls kept coming up towards my desk, which I don't understand why." Riaz giggled at that a little bit. "Riaz, it's fine. Besides, you're part of the orc club, remember?" He smiled a little bit at her. "So how are you feeling today?" she said as there was short silence in the room. Burcol looked to the ground with a normal look on his face. "Burcol, well, I should say it was better than yesterday, I guess." This caused Riaz to smile a little bit at him. "But I don't feel anything after when I defeated Rainer. Yeah, I avenged my brother and all, but I still don't feel happy about it." Riaz looked concerned about Burcol. She stood up from the other couch and headed towards Burcol. He looked up to see Riaz approaching him. He looked confused by this. She stopped in front of him. What are you doing?" He didn't get to finish his sentence because Riaz cupped her hands on Burcol's cheeks and kissed Burcol's forehead. He didn't know how to react because this came out of nowhere. His face was heating up. She then stopped kissing him on the forehead and just smiled at Burcol. "Riaz, that's to make you feel better, Burcol," she said as she was still smiling at him. Burcol didn't know how to react because his jaw was dropped and his face was red as her hair. "Burcol, I didn't need no kiss to make me feel better, I'm already fine," he says shouting at Riaz. She giggled at his reaction. "Riaz, sure you are Burcol and I should stop cuddling you now. I don't want to make our newest member jealous," she said while still smiling. Burcol was confused to what she was saying. Until he heard a voice behind him. "Asia W, what's going on here?" she said as she was getting jealous a little bit. Burcol turned around to Asia standing near the door. "Burcol, Asia," he said as he stood quickly, looking at Asia. She had her two fingers touching each other. "Asia, well, since Riaz, the president is beautiful. So it's no wonder you're attracted to her." No, I shouldn't be thinking like that." She was now shaking her head around, trying not to think about Burcol ending up with Riaz. She then stopped and placed her hands together and closed her eyes. "God, please forgive my sinful soul." She then get to finish because she started grabbing onto her head, meaning she got a real bad headache. "Burcol, are you alright?" "What's the matter, Asia?" he said as he was concerned about her. "Asia, my head hurts all of a sudden," she said as she was on the ground, still holding onto her head. Riaz, who was leaning on the couch, just smiled at this. "Riaz, of course. You've become a devil, Asia." Asia sighs knowing what Riaz was true. She got back up to her feet. "Asia, right, I'm a devil now." "Riaz, do you regret it?" Asia responding back to her. This causes Asia to smile again. "Asia, no, I'm very grateful, I'm happy to be close to Burcol like this, no matter what I am." This causes Burcol to smile at Asia's comment. Then Burcol noticed the clothing that Asia was wearing. "Burcol, wait, those clothes you're wearing, Asia, don't tell me," he said as he was looking at Asia's clothes. "Asia, do they look good on me?" She gives Burcol a twirl. "Burcol, are you transferring to this school?" he says to her. Riaz speaks up to answer Burcol's question. "Riaz, my father is involved with the school's management, so it wasn't a problem," she says to Burcol. He looks surprised. "Burcol, I never knew that." He then hears the doors open, revealing both Kiba and Kaneko. "Kiba, good morning Burcol," he says while waving at Burcol. He waved back both at Kiba and Kaneko. Then, the doors behind Asia open, revealing a Keno pushing a chair with a cake on it. The Keno, well, looks like everyone's here. "We'll be having a party to welcome our newest member." Burcol didn't pay attention to her words, he just stared at the cake. He was drooling over the cake. Everyone notices Burcol's reaction and they just laugh at it. Burcol looked at everyone confused. "Burcol, what? The cake looks good, I can't help it," he then starts to laugh a little. But what they didn't expect was there was some weird looking bird watching the orc through the window. But it wasn't no ordinary bird. It was Secret Kamara. In an unknown place, there was a man sitting on a couch with a bunch of ladies sitting next to him. He was watching a small TV in front of him. Hahaha. "That was a great final episode, just kidding," he said as he was starting to smirk. Ha. Chapter 9 Packed Experience with Riaz. It has been over a week since Burcol and the rest of his devil friends rescued Asia from Rainer. And Burcol has been training more. Every morning before he would go to school, he would go to the forest and go train in his Super Saiyan form. To try and master it. And if he had the time, he would also train after school too. He puts his Saiyan armor in his bag so he wouldn't have to wear his school uniform all day because it would get too itchy for him whenever he wears it. One day, he was done with school and he was making his way over the orc building so he can chill out there. As he got inside, he found out that he was the only one in the building. Burcol, strange, I thought Riaz would be in here. Oh well, might as well wait until everyone arrives. He then went over to the couch to relax from a boring school day. As he was relaxing, he started to hear something. He turned around to see what that sound was, and it was a shower. I wonder who's in here. He then went to sense who it was and at Asia who in the shower. And also, why is there a shower in the orc building anyway? Anyone could just peek in and see someone naked. He said in his thoughts. I think I'm going to take a little nap. Burcol then lays back on the couch and shuts his eyes to get a little nap. Time skip. 30 minutes later, Burcol was sound asleep and he was slowly starting to wake up from his nap. But something was wrong. Burcol felt like he was sleeping on a soft pillow. He didn't remember getting anything. He looked at who or what he was laying on. Burcol saw a familiar sight. It was a Keno who was resting Burcol's head on her lap. Burcol perked his head straight up from a Keno's lap. She just giggled at his reaction. The Keno, sorry, you just looked so peaceful that I didn't wanted to wake you up, Burcol just gave her a weird look. Burcol, okay? He then looks around the room to see Asia and Kiba sitting on one couch. He then looks over to Kaneko who was sitting by herself just eating snacks. Then his name gets called out. Riaz, did you enjoy your little nap? Burcol looks over to see Riaz sitting over at her desk. Burcol, why yeah I did. I came in to see if any of yous were here, but you weren't, except for Asia who was taking a shower. This causes Kaneko to stop eating her snacks and look at him. Kaneko, I hope you weren't spying on her, she said to him. Burcol looked at her with a shocked look on his face as to why he even peek at someone while they're taking a shower. Burcol, I've already told you this, I'm not a pervert, he said to her. This causes the whole room to laugh a little. This causes Kaneko to smile a little at Burcol. Kaneko, I'm only joking with you. I know you're not one of those dumbasses that go behind the kendo club and peek on the girls, she said with a smile. Then, Riaz speaks up. Riaz, now that you're here Burcol, I want to ask you something. This gets his attention. How often do you train? Burcol wondered why she would even ask that question. Burcol, I train every day. Right before I head off to school. Why ask? She said to Riaz. She just smiled at him. Riaz, I was wondering if I can stop by your place tomorrow and see what kind of training you do. This caught everyone's attention. They wanted to know what kind of training Burcol does. Burcol, yeah, sure. I don't mind. What time are you suggesting? This caused Riaz to think of what time to meet Burcol. Riaz, I was thinking 5 a.m. What do you think about that time? This causes Burcol to smile and he nods his head at Riaz. Burcol, that's a perfect time. That's when I usually get up to train. This causes Riaz to smile. Riaz, then I guess that's done then. You are all dismissed. Everyone says their goodbyes. Oh, Asia. This gets her attention. Let's have a chat about sleeping arrangements. Asia looked confused. Asia, time skip. The next day. It was now the next morning and Burcol's alarm was going off, waking him up. He hit the button to stop the alarm from making that sound. He rubbed his eyes to see what time it was. It was 4:30 a.m. Burcol, alright. That gives me enough time to take a shower, get dressed and have breakfast. As soon he said that, he got up out of bed and headed towards the bathroom to wash up. He got to the bathroom and started to undress himself. He got into the shower and let the water hit his body and he stayed in there for at least 5 minutes. He got out, dried himself and he headed to his bedroom to get changed into his Saiyan armor. Once he was done with that, he headed downstairs to make himself some breakfast. What should I make? Burcol was think what to have for breakfast. Then, he had an idea. Oh, I know. I'll make some ramen. After thought what he wanted to make, he headed towards the kitchen and started getting to work. Time skip. 10 minutes later, he was done making his breakfast and he headed towards the table with his food. Burcol, alright, let's eat. As soon as he said that, Burcol started chowing down on his food like an animal. Finishing bowl after bowl. After a while, Burcol was done eating breakfast and waiting for Riaz to arrive at his house. Guess we will head to the park and do some training there. Burcol looks at the clock and he sees the time is 4:58. Meaning Riaz will be here any minute now. So Burcol decided to sit on the couch. Until he felt her energy was close by. Meaning she's here. Might as well lock up and go see Riaz. He stood up from the couch and headed towards the front door. He got outside and was locking the place up with the keys until he heard his voice being called out. Riaz, hey Burcol. He turned around to see Riaz sitting on a bike. He also took notice that Riaz was wearing a pink exercise outfit. Are you ready to train? She said to Burcol with a smile. Burcol, yeah I am. And what's with the bike, Riaz? He asked why Riaz had a bike with her. Riaz caused silly, I wanna see how far you can jog from here while I follow you from behind to the park. After when she said that, Burcol just shook his head at her and started jogging to the park. Burcol, this is going to be easy. He said as he was jogging as Riaz was behind him riding the bike. Riaz was kind of impressed that Burcol wasn't breaking a sweat. He was making it look so easy to Riaz. Riaz, I'm actually surprised that you're not even sweating yet, Burcol. Just, how often do you train? She said as she was behind Burcol. He just smirked at himself as he was still jogging. Burcol, well, back when I was little. I would go to this tiny island with a pink house on it and train with my master there. He said to her. And like I said yesterday, I train every day but since I'm going to school now. It's kinda hard for me to even go out now. I might get some sessions before and after school, but those sessions ain't long enough for me. Burcol flowns a little bit but smiles again. Riaz, so you've been training your whole life? She says to him. Burcol nods his head while still jogging. Riaz smiled to herself. No wonder why his has such a nice toned body. She says in her thoughts as she was blushing a little. After jogging for 10 minutes, Burcol and Riaz had reached the park. Burcol was doing some stretches before he would start doing sit-ups and push-ups and some other stuff for training. Mind if I ask you a question? Burcol turns around to face Riaz. Why do you wear that armor? As she said that, Burcol just smiled at her. Burcol, well, I don't like wearing normal clothing when I train and I wear this armor because it's actually lightweight and I can move around quicker. He said to Riaz. She found that quite interesting that the armor that he was wearing was actually light. Well, enough about that. Let's get straight to training. He said. He smiled at Riaz. He then started to sit-ups at a fast pace. Riaz, who was standing there, was in disbelief because she was count of how many sit-ups he was doing because he was doing them so fast. Riaz, so fast. She said in her thoughts. Then, Burcol started to slow down from doing sit-ups. Burcol, you, that's a new record for me. He says as he laughs at himself. I think that's about 10,000 sit-ups. Riaz was shocked to hear that out of Burcol's mouth. Then, Burcol got on the ground and started doing push-ups. Riaz had an idea in her head so she went towards Burcol and she sat on his back. Which surprised Burcol. He was blushing like crazy. WW, what are you doing? He said as he was in a push-up position. Riaz just smiled at him. Riaz, I want to see how you do with me sitting your back. And no hexable thoughts, you. Burcol couldn't focus with her on his back. Well, get to work. He wanted to say something, but he didn't. He started doing push-ups with Riaz on his back. Burcol, ugh, why is she on my back? I can't even focus because her butt is on me, he said in his thoughts. I can't do this. He then started to stand up, which caused Riaz to smirk at herself. Riaz, what's the matter? She knew what was wrong, but she wanted to hear it from Burcol. Burcol, what's wrong, Riaz? I can't focus with you sitting on my back because all I can feel is your butt. He said to Riaz, who still had a smirk on her face. Riaz, so you were having hexable thoughts about me. You must be thinking how great my butt feels on your back. She said as she was teasing Burcol. His face turned red as her hair. Riaz giggled at this because found it cute whenever she teases Burcol. I'm only joking, Burcol. She said to him with a smile. Burcol, W, were you though? He said in his thoughts as his face was still red. Then, Riaz just remembered something. Riaz, oh, I forgot to say I wonder where she is. This got Burcol confused to who she was referring to. Burcol, W, who are you talking about? Then he started to sense familiar energy. He looked in front of him and he saw Asia running in her nun uniform. Asia, hey you guys, sorry I'm late, I won't let it happen, a guy whoa. She then tripped over, but Burcol used his speed to catch Asia before she fell to the ground. Burcol, whoa, easy there Asia. He said with a smile. Are you okay? You're not hurt, are you? He said with some concern in his voice. Asia looked up and saw him holding her. Asia, yeah, I'm fine thank you Burcol. She said as she smiled at Burcol. Then, he noticed that Asia was holding a basket in her hands. Burcol asks. Burcol, hey Asia, what's in the basket? If you don't mind me asking. Then, Asia gets back up on her feet and showed him some sandwiches in the basket. As soon as Burcol saw them, he started drooling at them because of how delicious they looked. They look so delicious, can I have one, he said as he was wanting to try the food. Both Asia and Riaz giggled at his reaction. Burcol and Asia both sat down at a nearby sit and Asia was giving Burcol some sandwiches. He then started chowing down on them. This caused Asia to giggle. As Burcol finished the last sandwich, he looked at Asia with a smile. Ah, that was so good, thanks for bringing them down, Asia. Asia, no problem at all, Burcol. She said with that smile of hers. Then, Burcol wanted to ask something. Burcol, so what brings you here, Asia? He said to Asia. Asia, oh, Riaz asked me if I could come. This got Burcol surprised a little bit. He then turns his head to face Riaz. Burcol, oh. Is that true, Riaz? He said to her. But there was no response from her. She was deep in thought about something. Burcol then called out to her again. Riaz. That got her attention as she turned her head towards Burcol. Riaz, I'm sorry. Burcol, are you okay, Riaz? You seem out of it today. He said with a concerned voice. She then forced a smile on her face. Riaz, yeah, I'm fine Burcol. Thank you for asking. She said with a smile on her face. Burcol found it a little suspicious about Riaz but decided not to ask her about it. Right, now that Asia is here. I think it's time that we head back to your place. She then started to walk away and head to Burcol's house. This got him confused. Burcol, wait, my place. What for? He said with an confused look. Riaz just turned around and smiled at him. Riaz, you'll see. Hi to residents. Burcol, Riaz and Asia made back to his place and Burcol was thinking of why would they want to come here. As they got to the front yard, Burcol noticed some boxes near the door. This got Burcol really confused now. Burcol, I swore that I didn't see these boxes when I left. He said in his thoughts. Ah, what's with these boxes? Riaz. What's going on? He said to her. Riaz, for now on, Asia will be living with you. It took Burcol to think of what she said until. Burcol, wait, what? He then looked over to Asia. Who had a smile on her face. Asia, it's real sweet of you for letting me stay here, Burcol. She then bowed her head towards Burcol. He was going to say something until Riaz spoke up. Riaz, when I asked her where she wanted to live, the first thing she said was your place. He then looked over to Asia with a surprised face. Burcol, is that true, Asia? She then nodded her head towards him. Well, I guess she can stay here. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have roommate. He said with an unsure voice. Asia smiled more. Riaz, now that's done, let's talk to your parents. As soon those words came out of her mouth. Burcol's eyes widened. He was now getting flashbacks from the day those androids attacked the city. He then looked down sad, remembering all the good times that he had with his parents. Riaz and Asia noticed his reaction. Burcol. She said with an concerned voice. Burcol, they died. A long time ago. Both of the girls looked shocked. Asia looked sad and Riaz looked down with face of regret. Riaz, I'm sorry that I even asked. Then, Burcol cut her off. Burcol, don't be, Riaz. Besides, you didn't know about it, so don't say sorry. He then showed a smile to Riaz to make sure that he was okay. Riaz, can I ask you something? He nods his head at Riaz. Can I ask about what happened to your parents? Burcol's face expression changed from happiness to anger. He then faced the front door and started walking forward. Burcol, did you even hear what happened 6 years ago? In the city? He said to Riaz. As he stopped near the door, without facing the both of them. Riaz, yes, actually. There was an attack in the city by 2 people. Burcol, remembering the fight he had with those androids and them fusing together to take him out. He then faced both Asia and Riaz. Burcol, those 2 were not people, he said as the 2 of them were completely confused. Asia, then what were they? If they weren't people? She said as she wanted to know what they are. Burcol, they were androids. After when he said that, the 2 of them were shocked that it was a bunch of cyborgs that did that destruction all those years ago. When I found out the city was in danger, I wanted to see who was causing all of this destruction until I found them trying to kill this man. The 2 of them were astonished by what Burcol was saying right now. I fought the 2 androids and, well, I'd say I was beating them for a short time. Until they both fused together, becoming a fused android. Both of them looked more shocked than before. Riaz's fusion, is that even possible? Burcol just nodded his head at her. Wow. Asia, did you ever defeated them? He then looked over to Asia, shaking his head. Now they were confused to who they defeated, the androids. Then who defeated them? If you don't mind me asking. Burcol, that's the thing, I don't know who defeated them. I was badly hurt and I passed out from the damage I received from those bastards. Next thing you know, I woke up in a field with me wearing nothing. The girl's jaws were on the floor. They never heard a story like that before. Then Riaz remembered something that his brother told her a long time ago. Riaz, actually, I did hear reports from my brother that there was a rampaging monkey causing chaos in the city. When she said that, Burcol quickly looked at her with a confused face. He kept looking at her until Burcol, rampaging monkey, those were the only words that came out of his mouth. I don't remember seeing something like that. All I remember was fighting that android and somehow defeated me. He was now trying to think. Why didn't I hear about this if it was making a lot of noise? It should have woke me up from the destruction it was making 6 years ago. He said in his thoughts. He then gave up on it and looked back at Asia and Riaz. Well, we should probably get out of these clothes and get going. We don't want to be late for school. Riaz, yes, you're right, Burcol. Let's get changed. Then they all went inside to get changed. Riaz changing out of her fitness clothing, Burcol getting out of his Saiyan armor, and Asia changing out of her nun uniform. How academy. After that workout he had with Riaz, Burcol was in his classroom, learning a math problem. He was getting frustrated from this because he wasn't a big fan of math. He sat there for at least 20 minutes. Still thinking what it was. Burcol, I give up, he said as he dropped his pencil on his desk. And right after, the school bell went off. Which got Burcol happy. Finally, he said as he stood up from his desk and started to go for a walk around the school. He got outside and two people start calling out his name. Burcol, he turned around to find the two girls that he met back on his first day. Burcol, oh, hey girls. He said with a smile on his face. What brings you here to see me? He said to the two girls that were in front of him. Then, the girl with the pink short hair spoke up. Is it true? This got Burcol so confused to what she was talking about. Then the girl with brown hair spoke as well. That Asia that is living with you? After when she said that, Burcol started to go red and start to sweat. He didn't know what to say. Burcol, he said as he didn't know what to say. Might as well tell them part of the truth. He said in his thoughts. Sigh, yes, she is living with me. And the only reason why she is living with me is because she had nowhere else to go. So I wanted to help her out and let her stay with me. He said to the girls, who were now smiling at him now. For being so nice. That's so nice of you, Burcol. Said the girl with the brown hair. Burcol, yeah, he said as he was scratching the back of his head. It's not like I wanted her to live with me. Asia said that she felt safe whenever she was around me. Burcol said in his thoughts. Well, I gotta go now, he said as he was trying to figure out their names. Until he realized that they didn't give them their names to him. Oh, yeah. We didn't give you our names when we first met. Did we? He shook his head. Right, well, I'm Murayama. The girl with the brown hair said. And I'm Caddis. Said the girl with pinkish hair. Burcol, well, it was great to see you two again, but I got somewhere to be. He then started to run towards the school building. I'll see you two later, he said, shouting at the two girls. Murayama and Caddis started to wave Burcol. Murayama and Caddis, he's so dreamy, they both said as Burcol was nowhere in their sight. Time skip. End of the day. It was now the end of another school day, and Burcol was packing up to head to the orc building to chill out there. He then walked out of the classroom and saw Asia. He then called out. Burcol, Asia, this gets her attention and she turns around to Burcol. She smiled at him. Asia, oh, hi Burcol. She said to him as Burcol was now standing next to each other. Want to head to the orc building together? She said with that smile on hers. Burcol just nodded at her and the two of them started walking to the old school building together. Then, Burcol wanted to ask Asia something. Burcol, hey Asia. This gets her attention. What did you say to the two girls today? She then started to remember who she was talking to. Asia, oh, it was Murayama and Caddis. Why do you ask? She said with as they still continued to the old building. Burcol, can you not go saying that you live with me now? Because I don't want people to get the wrong idea about us. He said as his face started to go red a little but was able to keep his composure. Asia was confused at first until she started to think about it. She then started blushing and looked away from Burcol. Asia, sorry Burcol, she said with embarrassed face on her. Burcol just smiled and started to pet Asia's head. She looked up to him to see him smiling. Burcol, it's okay. I forgive you. Then Asia started to smile as well. Well, apart from that. How was your first day of school? He said as he wanted to know how her day was. Asia, it was great, there's so many nice people here and I enjoy it here. Burcol was happy that Asia was living a better life now. And he swore to himself that he will protect her and everybody as. But this caught his attention. They were these two boys. I think their names were Mitsuda and Motohama, I think. Burcol remembering his first day here when Issei introduced him to his two pervy friends. And things didn't end well. They were asking me to come over to have a devil threesome, they called it. After she said that, Burcol looked shocked. Because he heard from his brother many times. Burcol, whatever you do, don't ever go to that, he said to Asia. Asia was going to say something but decided not to and just nodded at Burcol. Letting him that he won't go. Burcol sighed in relief. Those pervy bastards trying to get an innocent person to do that, he said in his thoughts as the two of them reached the main doors to the old building. They went inside and saw Riaz and everyone else. "Hey, Riaz," he said to her, but she was spacing out again. How she was back at the park. This got Burcol more concerned now. Riaz. This got out of her thoughts and she looks at both Asia and Burcol with a smile. Riaz, oh, I'm sorry, I guess I spaced out there, she said with a smile, but Burcol was buying it. There was something wrong with her and she was hiding something from him. She then stood from her chair. "If you don't have any problems with it, you can make your big debut tonight, Asia," she said as she was looking at her. Asia debut? She was thinking of what debut she was talking about. Even Burcol was confused by it as well. Until Kiba spoke up. "Kiba, basically you jump to a potential client using a magic circle and try to make a pact with them," he said with a smile on his face. Burcol and Asia now understanding thing now. Burcol, oh okay, he said. He then looked over to Asia who had a worried face on her. "You okay, Asia?" he said too as he wanted to know what was up with Asia. She then looked up to Burcol. "Asia, oh, it's just that I'm nervous. That's all," she said as she looked with her hands together. Burcol smiled and placed his hands on her shoulder. She then looked back to make contact with his eyes. Burcol, try not to be nervous. Try to think when you get your first ever pact, Asia. And when you get it, you won't be so nervous. Right, he said with encouraging words. She then smiled at Burcol, knowing that he's right. Asia, why yeah, you're right. Thank you, Burcol. He just continued to smile at her. He then let go of her and she looked over to Riaz. Right, I'm heading off now. I'll see you later. She then head towards the door and leaves the room. Everyone went back to whatever they were doing while Burcol was just standing there. He then went over the couch to sit next to Kaneko and he sees her eat a chocolate bar. Burcol was drooling while Kaneko was nibbling on her chocolate. She notices Burcol looking at it and sees the drool coming out of his mouth. Burcol, can I have some? He said as he wanted a piece of chocolate. She just looked at him and then turned back to eating. Not responding to Burcol. Burcol guessed by her reaction that it is a no to her. Pleasey, he said as he was pleading for it now. Kaneko just sighed and brought out another bar out of her bag. Burcol's eyes lit up and quickly snatched out of her hands and chucked it in his mouth. Kaneko, chew like that and you'll choke on it, she said as she cracked a smile a little bit. Everyone in the room just giggled on Burcol just eating it like the animal he was. Once he was done, he stood up and looked at everyone. Burcol, welp him ahead home everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow everyone, he said as he waved at everyone. They all said goodbye to Burcol and he left the room to head home for the day. Hyoudou residence. Burcol had arrived home and was making himself some more food because the chocolate bar that Kaneko gave to him wasn't enough for his appetite. He decided to make Asia some food as well once she arrives home. After 10 minutes of making more food for himself and Asia, he sat down at the dining table and started eating. As he was eating, he heard the front door open. He was probably thinking that it was Asia who came back from her debut pact and he was correct. Asia came walking through the hallway and saw Burcol chowing down on his food. She still found this hilarious that Burcol ate like this. Burcol looked up to see Asia standing there, watching him eat. He then smiles at her. Burcol, oh hey Asia. I made you some food if you want any. Asia just smiled at Burcol and shook her head at him. Asia, I'm fine, Burcol. But, thank you though. After when she said that, Burcol took the other plate that he made for Asia and started eating the other one. Burcol, well more for me then, he said as he chewing down the food. He then looked up to Asia. He wanted to ask how her pact went. So, how did your first pact go? He said as he continued to eat his food. Asia, oh, it was great. I got to help out some lady who needed help moving boxes and she was lovely. That made Burcol smile. He was glad that she was able to get done. After talking for a little bit, Burcol finished the second plate that was supposed to be for Asia. Burcol, ah, that was a nice feed. I'm so full, he said as he was rubbing his stomach. Asia just giggled a little bit. Asia, I still don't know how you can eat so much, she said as Burcol was putting the plates away. He turned around, faced her. Burcol, I guess it's just my Saiyan appetite, haha, he said as he laughed a little. He then started to feel tired a little. Yawn, I'm going to hit the hay, Asia. I'll see you in the morning. He then started walking upstairs to his room. Asia, oh, well good night Burcol, she said as she was waving at Burcol as he made his way up the stairs. As Burcol made his way to his room, he got out of his school uniform and changed into his PJs. He got into bed and started staring at the ceiling. Burcol, I'm glad Asia is living a better life now and not being treated like crap by those fallen angels and also that sick persist that tried to hurt her. He then slowly started to close his eyes. Tomorrow is a new day, he said as he fell asleep. Burcol was sleeping and he started to hear the ocean. He slowly started to open his eyes and he can see that he was on a familiar island. Burcol turned around to see the pink house where Master Roshi and the turtle live. Burcol, this is probably another one of this random dreams I keep having. He says in his thoughts. He then started to wander towards the house until he saw his past self and the old man doing their regular training like he did when he was little. Burcol was trying to figure out what part of his past is this. Then, he heard his kid self. Kid Burcol, well, I'm heading off for the day guys. I'll see you tomorrow, Master Roshi and Mr. Turtle. Kid Burcol said to the both of them. Master Roshi, okay my boy, I'll see you tomorrow. Turtle, yes, see you tomorrow Burcol. They both said to the young Burcol. They all waved goodbye to each other and the young Burcol took off back home. The present Burcol just smiled to himself, remembering the training that the old man taught him when he was little. Then, Master Roshi spoke up, getting Burcol's attention. Master Roshi, right, now that's done with. I can go and continue on with that hot girl magazine. He said as he was now walking back inside the house. Burcol just stood there, shaking his head with a smile on his face. Burcol, heh, you old geezer. He said to himself. Then, he just remembered something. Where have I remembered this training session before? It then hit him. This was the training session after he returned back to Cow. It was the day that the androids attacked the city and killed his parents. Mom, Dad. He then engulfed himself in Kai and took off to the Kuo to look for his mom, dad and possibly Issei. Before the androids got to them. He was now rushing back to the city, flying over the water. He then finally made it back to Kuo and he saw the same destruction he saw all those years ago. If I can sense where they are, then I can go to them and try and save them. He then started to sense where they were and he sensed them coming from the south. He wasted no time and started flying towards their direction. He was blasting off at full speed, trying to make it to his parents before they were killed. Then, he saw both his mom and dad. He also spotted Issei standing there with scared look on his face. He then saw the two beings that were causing havoc to the city years ago. Android 17 and Android 18. This got Burcol mad as he saw the two cyborgs and charged at the two of them. Aha, he screamed out as he was going to deliver a flying kick to the both of them, but he went straight through the both of them. What he said as he looked back at the both of them. Android 1817, can we kill this two already and go? She said to his brother who just smirked at his sister. Android 17, sure, why not? He then raised his hand and started charging up and Kai blast. Both of Burcol's parents looked at Issei. Dad, Issei, run for it, he said, but was too scared to even move. His whole body was shaking. Now son, don't worry about us. That got his attention and he started running back home. Burcol was getting mad and looked at the two androids. Burcol, I'm not going to lose them again. He then charged at them again, but it was the same result as before. He went through them again. He then started punching and kicking them, but nothing was happening. They kept going through his body and then he started to hear the male android speak up. Android 17, time to die. As he said that, he blasted it off to his parents. Burcol looked over and it was going to hit them. Burcol knew the blast then hit the both of them, killing them in an instant. Burcol was in disbelief that he saw his parents got killed right in front of them. He dropped to his knees and looked down at the ground. Tears slowing going down his face. Android 17, come on, 18. Let's go. They then took off to the sky and were no longer in Burcol's sight. Burcol clenched his fist together, slowing drawing out blood. Burcol then everything exploded around him, making it go all white. Hyoudou residence. Burcol, who was sleeping in his bed, shot straight up out of his bed and started breathing real fast as if something had scared him. He then quickly looked around the room and realized it was just a dream. He then started to calm down. He then noticed something dripping down his hand. He looked at the both of them and it was blood from when he was have that nightmare. Burcol, I wonder what time it is. He then looked over to his clock and he can see it was 4:35 in the morning. He then sighed to himself and got out of bed and started to head to the bathroom to wash his face. I don't think I'm getting any sleep after that dream I just had tonight, he said as he reached the bathroom door. He walked in, turned on the tap and splashed water all over his face. He then washed his face and looked at himself in the mirror. After a few seconds, he walked out of the bathroom and head back to bed to see if he can get any sleep. Time skip. Kuo Academy. A few hours have passed and Burcol was out on the running track and he was so tired because he didn't get any sleep after he had that dream he had last night. He kept yawning throughout the day and he decided to sleep for a little bit in the nurse's office. He was outside nurse's office and let himself in to see beds in the side of the room. He went to one of the beds and fell straight first onto the bed and fell asleep instantly. Time skip. Few hours later, Burcol, who was asleep on the bed, was slowly waking up from his nap. He then reached out his arm to stretch but felt something squishy and soft. He was confused to what he was touching. He looked over to see a sight. He widened his eyes and his face went bright red. Redder than Ria's hair. Burcol, Rias, he said as he was yelling in his thoughts. Luckily she was asleep. Why is she even here, he said as he was looking at the ceiling in his thoughts. He then looked over to her a little. I'm not going to lie to myself, but she does look kinda beautiful when she sleeps. As he said that, Riaz woke up from her nap and gave Burcol a gentle smile. Burcol freaked out and turned to the opposite side where he can see the curtains. Riaz, good afternoon Burcol. How did you sleep? She said with a smile. Burcol, oh why yeah, good, he said as he was not facing Riaz. She got the idea of why he was not facing her and she found it cute. Riaz, why can't you look at me when I'm next to you? She said to Burcol. Burcol, why maybe because you're next to me in the nude and why are you even sleeping next to me, I don't need healing, he said as he accidentally looked at Riaz. He got a glimpse at her breast and started blushing like crazy. He looked the other way while his face is a blushing mess. Riaz giggled. She then notices her wings out and puts them away and hugs Burcol's back, but was now even more embarrassed by this. Riaz, when I walked in here, I noticed you sleeping on one of the beds and I decided to join. She said with a smile. Mind if I ask you something? This got Burcol's attention. Burcol, W, what is it? He said as he still his back turned away from Riaz. Riaz, what do you think of my breast? As soon she said that, Burcol was in total shock at what he had just heard out Riaz's mouth. Burcol, WW, what kind of question is that, he said, shouting in the nurse's office. Riaz just continued to smile at him. Riaz, just answer me. What do you think? Burcol couldn't find the words except sighing. Burcol, W, well yours is big, he said with embarrassment in his voice. There was a short silence for a few seconds until. Riaz, you want to touch them? Burcol quickly got out of the bed and looked at Riaz with, are you serious look. Burcol, DD, do you have any idea what you are saying right now, he said, shouting at Riaz. She just giggled at him. Riaz, I'm only just teasing you. She said as she sat up on the bed while looking at Burcol. Do you want to do something this afternoon? She says to Burcol who had his back turned against her. Burcol, like what? He said as his back is still turned away from her. She then smiles. Riaz, do you want to do a pack together? Burcol was also wanted to do one of these packs. Ever since Asia returned from hers last night, he kind of took interest in it. Burcol, ah sure, I'd like to. He said to her. This caused Riaz to smile a lot now. She then turned around to pick up her bra off the chair where her school uniform was set nicely. She then put her bra and panties back on. As she was done dressing herself, she turned around to look at Burcol who still had his back turned. Riaz, you can turn around now. As she said that, Burcol turned around to see her in her school uniform. He just sighed and facepuned himself. Meet me at the orc and we will start from there, okay? He just nodded his head as he just looked up to her. She then walked out of the nurse's office and Burcol was still trying to get over that whole situation with Riaz sleeping naked next to him. Burcol, if this keeps happening then I'm going to have to get used to it. He said as he shook his head. He then exited the nurse's office and then went on with the rest of the day. Time skip. Orc building. It was now the end of the school day and Burcol was with Riaz getting ready to do their pack together. Riaz then looked at him. Riaz, Burcol. This gets his attention. Since you're not able to teleport with me, you're going to have to find your own way there. She says to him. Burcol just nodded to her. Then, the red logo appeared underneath Riaz and she teleported to the client's house. Burcol was trying to sense her to see where she was. Then, he picked up her energy. He then faces the others and waves at them. Burcol, alright, everyone. I'll see you later. He then puts his 2 fingers on his forehead and instant transmission to Riaz. Kiba, it's amazing how he can teleport to people by just using their energy. The girls just nodded at Kiba. Client's house. Riaz was waiting for Burcol to arrive here until he popped out right in front of her, scaring her a little bit. Riaz, I gotta get used to that. She said as Burcol just laughed a little by her scared reaction. You ready to go in? She said to him. He gave the thumbs up, letting her know that he is ready. The 2 of them were met by a person with shiny armor. Are you 2 devils? She said in a high-pitched voice. Burcol didn't know to respond to that because he wasn't a devil himself. He then looked at Riaz who was just smiling. Riaz, yes, we are. She said to the person in the samurai armor. Burcol noticed the samurai artifacts around the room. Then, the girl in the armor spoke up. I'm Susan-san and I'm foreign exchange student. I love Japanese culture, it's totally cool. Burcol was totally confused with that last part but still continued to listen. Burcol, do you mind me asking why you are in that armor? Burcol said as he was curious to why she was. Susan, no. I wear this armor because it is very scary at night so I can scare the bad people away. Burcol chuckles a little at answer. Burcol, well, it's not a bad idea, Susan. He said with a smile on his face. She was relieved that someone thought it was a good idea for her to wear armor. Susan, arigato. Burcol, still not understanding what she meant. I'm so glad you are nice devils. If you have been kawaii, I would have no choice to grab my samurai sword and slice you up like sushi. She said as she grabbed out her sword and tried to swing at Burcol who easily dodges it. Susan realized what she had done and got onto her knees in front of Burcol. Gamenasai, she said to Burcol. He was probably thinking that she was saying sorry. Burcol smiled at her and bent him down to his knees and looked at her. Burcol, you don't have to apologize for nothing. I forgive you. He said to her. Susan was glad that he wasn't mad at her. Susan here, senpai. I will make a tea for you and your girlfriend as an apologize. She then ran over to the table where the teapot and cups were. Burcol just continued to smile until he looked over to Riaz, who was blushing randomly. This got Burcol so confused. Burcol, you okay? He said to Riaz, who was next to him. Riaz, and nothing. She said to him. Burcol was going to ask her another question but was cut off by Susan. Susan, here you go. She said as she gave us the tea. We thanked her for it and we took a sip off it. Then, Riaz then spoke up. Riaz, so, what can we do for you? She said with a smile on her face. Susan, well, the thing is I left my notebook at school and I'm too scared to go get it by myself. She said as she was crying in embarrassment. Burcol, hey, don't be embarrassed about it. How about this? This catches her attention. How about I come with you and get your notebook? How does that sound? As he said that, she sounded happy. Susan, yes, that would make me very happy. Arigato. After that, the two of them made their way to her school to collect her notebook. Time skip. 20 minutes later, after getting her notebook from her school, they made their way back to her house. There were times where she brought out her samurai sword and started swinging it like a crazy person, to the point where Burcol had to calm her down. Susan, arigato senpai. She said to him. Burcol and Riaz both stood up and were about to take their leave. Riaz, we should take our leave now, Burcol. She said to Burcol with a smile. He just smiled back at her. Riaz was setting up an teleportation for herself and Burcol was getting ready to instant transmission to her. Until Susan senpai, this getting the attention of the both of them. They turned their heads around to face Susan. There is one more thing I like to do, please, she said in a shy voice. Burcol looked over to Riaz, who just smiled. Riaz, sure thing, what is it? She said as she was seeing what she wanted now. Both of them went back to kneel on the mat. Susan, there's an otoko. Riaz gasped at this and Burcol was wondering what an otoko is. Burcol, what's that? He questioned to Riaz. Riaz, it's a guy. She said to Burcol, who now understands what it meant. She then turned her attention to Susan. What's he like? Susan, who is now getting all embarrassed now. Susan, well, I really like him, but I'm really shy. I don't know how to talk to him. She said to both Riaz and Burcol. Riaz, and does that mean you want to make him fall in love with you? She questioned her. Susan then started waving her hands in front of her. Susan, oh no, I don't want him to force him to. I want him to do it on his own. She said. Riaz, have you tried opening up to him? She suggested to her. Susan, oh no, I don't know where to even start. Burcol was now thinking how to help her get his attention. Then, an idea popped in his head. Burcol, what about a letter? He said to the both of them. Riaz looked at him with a smile on her face. Riaz, not a bad idea, Burcol. Writing down your feelings could be a great way to express yourself. She said to Susan. Then, she got a letter and started writing down her feelings for this guy. Burcol then looks at Riaz. Burcol, I hope this works. He said to Riaz, who was just watching, write down her letter. Riaz, I think it's great. I think the only thing that matters is in the feelings you communicate, not the form. She said with a smile while she looked at Burcol. Burcol, I never really thought of it that way. That's a pretty good way to put it, Riaz. He said as he smiled back at her. She then looked away, with her smile slowly fading away from her face, which gets Burcol's attention. Riaz, but it's hard to say the way you feel. But it's good. She said in a sad voice. Burcol looked concerned at her. Burcol, hey, are you okay? He said to her, but then hears the voice of Susan. Susan, and done, she says as she's holding the letter in her hands. But Burcol notices something else she was holding as well. She was holding an arrow. This will probably be the best way to send the letter to him. She said to Burcol and Riaz. Burcol looked shocked and Riaz was just giggling. Burcol, are you sure you're not going to kill him? He said as he was worried that she might hit him in the head or something. Susan, not to worry, senpai, I have the greatest aim. She said in a happy voice. Burcol sweat dropped at this. Burcol, I don't even want to find out what happens next. He said in his thoughts. Time skip. The next day. It was now the next day and Burcol and Riaz were with Susan, waiting for the man to arrive. It took about a few minutes until they can see a man in shiny armor making his way out of the forest. But Burcol notices the arrow that Susan shot was stuck to the side of his head. Burcol freaked out a little by seeing that same arrow. Burcol, this guy looks so mad, I thought you had good aim, he said to her. Susan, well, I tried to think of other ways to send it and I thought an arrow might have worked. She cried out a little. Burcol just sighed and facepalmed himself. Burcol, well, at least he's not dead or anything like that. Luckily he's even wearing the armor. He said to Susan. Then, Burcol and Riaz decided to give the two of them space as they were watching from the side. The armor guy approached her. I've perused your letter, my lady, and I have been shocked through the heart and not the head to think of all the people that I would have been caught off guard by this. I am truly overwhelmed. He said to Susan, who was shaking uncontrollably. Susan, I'm so head over my bare skin, foot and Kuo. You are all I could think about, my samurai. She said in a nervous voice. If you'll have me, I'll be glad to be your knight in shining yoroi. As soon he said that, both Burcol and Riaz became happy with the results that happened today. Susan, oh Hori-san, oh Susan-san, I'm Skip. End of the day. Riaz and Burcol were now both back at the Orc building now after what happened today. Riaz was sitting on her desk, looking at the picture that she took of the both of them. Riaz, those two were sure a match of shining armor. She said as she continued to look at the picture with a smile on her face. Burcol, yeah, they sure are. He said as he laughed a little bit. Riaz, so what do you think? This catches his attention. About the person you love more than everything in the world. She says to Burcol. Burcol, I guess it sounds pretty nice. Riaz agreed to what he said just now. But she then looks up at Burcol. As long it's not like that bastard of a fallen angel who tricked my. He then stops there, not wanting to say his name as it will bring back the bad memories from that night he found Issei. Riaz knew what Burcol was about to say. You get who I'm saying. Anyway, love has to be honest and strong on both sides and always care for each other. He says while looking down. Riaz was actually surprised by what Burcol just said. He then looked up to see her reaction. Sorry for bringing that up. He said to Riaz, who is just shaking her head as she was smiling. Riaz, no, it's fine. Besides, I only wanted an honest answer. Thank you, Burcol. She said to Burcol with sweet smile of hers. Burcol blushed a little but was able to compose himself. Then, Burcol remembered what Riaz said back Susan's house. Her saying it's hard to say the way you feel to someone. He decided to ask her. Burcol, hey Riaz. This gets her attention. Mind if I ask you something? He said to her. Riaz, not at all, ask away. She said too with a smile. Burcol, back at the client's house, you said it's hard to say the way you feel for someone. Riaz widened her eyes at that question. What do you mean by that? Riaz then looked down with an saddened face. Riaz. He said with an concerned look on his face. Riaz, it's nothing, Burcol. She said while putting on that fake smile. Burcol knew she was lying to him. He was going to say something to her but didn't want it to push her more. Burcol, are you sure? He said to her while she was still putting on the fake smile. She just nodded at him. Alright, if you say so, he said as he turned around, walking out of the door. But, he stopped and looked back at Riaz with smile. If you ever need to talk, don't hesitate to come find me, okay? He said to her, giving her the most sweetest smile yet. Riaz noticed this and blushed like crazy. Well, I'm going home now, I'll see you tomorrow. He then walked out the room, leaving Riaz all by herself. Tears slowly started coming down her face. Riaz, I want to, but I can't. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.